Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to the Pipeline Podcast, episode 86. Joining me today, we have the one, the only, the fabulous, the amazing co-host, Connor. Exit over here. Connor's back with us once more.
What's up?
Great to have you back, Connor. It's great to have you back. And the Flash vanished in Crisis, and I was like, maybe Connor also vanished in a Crisis.
Maybe I did. Sure. Well, look, we were having a big fight, and I was like,
oh yeah,
there's so much drama going on between us. So I was like, I don't need to be dragging it onto the podcast. So
yeah, no, I mean, I heard. I mean, it's just a theory, but I heard that you are going to be directing the new Inhumans show, Inhumans Born Again.
I was, yeah. I was called up to do that, but they no, didn't go true.
Yep. Oh, it didn't turn out. Dang it.
No, they canceled it.
And joining us, very special guest, we have Dino. Dino, how's it going today?
It's going good. I also had heard you were working on the Meachums television series. You know, the spin-off to Iron Fist.
Yeah, I was. That didn't go through either. They canceled that too.
Okay.
A lot of cancellations. Cancellations lately in my career, unfortunately.
We love the Meachums. The real title of that show.
Yeah.
Is there anything you are working on, Connor? Is there any cool projects that Disney's called you up for? Or?
Well, Tron Legacy 2, not to be confused with Tron Ares. Tron Legacy 2 is actually doing. It's going pretty far in production right now. So look out for that.
Fun. Wow. I love that for you. No, thank you, Dino, for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We saw that you're very big into TV shows and stuff like that, and Connor's also a big TV guy. I think I'm a big TV guy until I see other TV guys. I was like, oh, I haven't even seen 90% of what he's watched. But no, later on today we're going to be talking about some of our favorite TV characters. I'm very excited to do that. For mine, I was very kind of excited to do it because I had made a video doing the same exact thing a couple years ago, and I was like, I'm gonna pick all new characters. I'm gonna pick characters I've never talked about in here, and see how that goes. But Dino, we like to kind of open up our podcast by just chatting about what we watched throughout the week, or any movies or TV shows or games or whatever.
Yeah.
Connor, it's been a couple weeks for you. Have you watched any cool things?
I did. Let me think.
He's just nope. I didn't watch anything for 3.
I'm doing Sopranos at the moment properly, and I'm on season 6
Cool.
of that. And
was that a first time thing for you?
I've seen bits of it over the years. I've seen the first episode 5 times, I think. But in terms of the whole show, this is the first time I've been doing the whole thing, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good TV. What else? I finally caught up on Welcome to Wrexham, the Rob McElhenney, Ryan Reynolds Welsh football documentary thing, which hate football, but that's a good documentary.
Cool.
Other than that, yes, there's some new shows what's been new? Sugar, that new Colin Farrell show on Apple is it's really interesting. It's doing some stuff that's very unexpected. I don't know, the God, I'm going blank. There's so many TV shows at the moment. I finally finished Three Body Problem, the Netflix show. That was really good. I really liked that. Yeah,
that's one. I keep hearing about it, everyone talking about, but I still know nothing about it. I couldn't tell you anything.
It's the Netflix show that the 2 Game of Thrones guys wrapped up Game of Thrones really fast because they had to go do that.
Oh wow!
So it's got a load of actual cast members from Game of Thrones in it, but the book series is completed, so it's not going through kind of the adaptation stuff that Game of Thrones went through. So it's off to a really good start. Yeah, that's kind of the major things I watched.
Cool.
I feel like you'd want to focus on Game of Thrones. I feel like that's not to say that this other show's not great, but wasn't Game of Thrones the biggest show ever made?
Yeah.
I feel like
it's supposed to be 10 seasons, and then they were like, no, we gotta do it in 8 because we gotta go do some other stuff.
They worked on Game of Thrones from 2008 or something all the way to 2019. So I don't fault them, but obviously, everyone knows what happened.
Sure, yeah.
So.
I feel like that's when you pass it on to someone new. If you're at that point and not feeling it, be like, okay, let me find someone who is. Let me find someone, because guess what? There would have been people to be like, yeah, I'd love to work on Game of Thrones.
100%.
Yeah. I'm sure
do I want to work on the biggest show ever made? Why not?
Yeah. How many writers from the entire Game of Thrones run that worked alongside the 2 of them would have been more than happy to take over if they were leaving?
Sure.
I don't know.
Dino, do you have anything that you would like to shout out or?
Oh man, I have been watching so much crazy stuff lately. I recently rewatched Reign of Fire with a group of friends for 2002 film. Christian Bale, Matthew McConaughey, post-apocalyptic dragon movie. Just awesome, because last time I saw it was in 2003, like from Blockbuster rental, and it was just so wonderful to revisit an old movie that's underrated that like no one talks about. 2 nights ago I watched Master and Commander. I'm just gonna fly through these because I watched a lot. Master and Commander was a ship battle movie, wooden ships, Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany, James Darcy, wonderful cast. I love James Darcy from like Agent Carter, and so that movie was incredible. Like imagine Saving Private Ryan, but it's on the water and like wood is flying and people are like getting ready for cannonballs to come in. And I've been watching like people play Sea of Thieves on Twitch, so like watching like this movie after that was really funny to me because I was like, okay, this is way more serious than like I was expecting, and I should have expected that. That was a wonderful film. I'm on a pretty big Western kick right now. I'm all over the place with it when it comes to Westerns. Last year, I watched all of Deadwood. So I was really like, it's just incredible. And
so good.
So I needed a Western this year, and I started Billy the Kid a couple of months ago. I kind of fell off of it because it's pretty decent. Like I love the vigilante stories. I think we all can agree there. Yeah. So it's pretty good. But I just started 2 Westerns at the same time. One of them being like so comic booky, so cheesy, called Queen of Swords. And it's from the year 2000. And it's like a female Zorro show. And it's just wonderful to me. And I also started Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels is insane.
So I'm on like 2 Western shows. One being like kind of like admittedly silly, but like still kind of more impressive than I thought it would be. And then the other one is like, like just really wonderful in its own right. About the post Civil War era and building the railroad and like all these different players coming together or against each other. I'm trying to think what else I've been watching recently. Lots of House.
Oh, House, House is good as well.
Yeah, my friend he falls asleep in the Discord server watching House, and he'll stream it, and like we'll just be like, okay, yeah, he's streaming House again. He's just asleep, and House episodes will just keep playing on his Netflix. So sometimes that's a thing.
That sounds amazing.
House is one of those shows. It's like I want to watch that, but I know I never will. Like I know it's just a show that's never going to be on that high enough on my watch list to get through. But it looks so much fun.
Yeah, I watched it on TV back in 2009, like randomly. It wasn't a show I watched in order, so I kind of like I'm really big on that when it comes to content. I know a lot of people want to watch things in order, but for me, I think of it like music, where it's like you hear a single in an album or a single song within an album, and it should make you want to go visit the whole thing based on like how good that one piece of it is. Obviously, that's not the case with all pieces of art, but like we can get into it later. Like with the Arrowverse, I did that with the Arrowverse. Once I got into enough seasons of each of those shows, I just started watching individual episodes that I was hearing was really good. Like the Flash Time episode, like the episode where the nuke goes off. I remember like I had never seen that whole season yet. Like I watched the first 3 seasons and I was like, everyone's talking about this Flash Time episode. I'm going to go there. I know these characters. So I watched like every crossover, but I stopped watching every episode of those shows because I realized like it's much more fun to just kind of pick up the comic and just like read it on its own terms, so to speak.
The Arrowverse is also so hard to just jump into. Like it's so really hard to watch it in order. Like I can't imagine someone like right now being like, I'm gonna go watch the entire Arrowverse. It's like, all right, so then you have to go Flash and Arrow, then Super. Like you have to like do so many crossing shows. You can't just watch one show in order.
I think for me, I did 5 seasons of Arrow, and then I just watched random Arrow episodes, including crossovers. 3 seasons of Flash, and then I watched all of season 5 of Flash and all of the final season. And with Legends of Tomorrow, I watched the first 5 seasons, or 4 seasons, I guess. And Supergirl, the first 2 seasons. And then, I just kind of stuck around for the crossovers, stuck around for, like, the really big highlight episodes. And I never was lost because that was a good foundation. But I'm sure not many other people would be, like, as prepared to do that if they hadn't seen as much as that. Because that's still a lot to watch. It's a lot. To know the characters.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
like
I mean, I know people
twice as much of a normal show, like a normal long show.
Truly. Yeah, and like I know people who just do the crossovers.
Yeah.
And like at the time, that was a bit frustrating. Me being like, "Oh, you didn't watch all year? How dare you just watch the crossovers?" But now it's like, "Oh, I get it. I totally
like,
get why you
don't
want to
understand. Alex just broke up and now she's with Sarah. You don't get it."
In some cases, that's how people read comics. They'll be like, okay,
exactly,
I haven't read comics before. I want to jump into something with a bunch of different characters and see how they intermingle. And if you like one of those characters enough, maybe, perhaps, you'll be like, oh, let's like go check out a season of Supergirl.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's totally valid. It's been a couple weeks, Connor. I did watch a couple things. I've started the Planet of the Apes, like the Caesar movies. I did the first two. I was supposed to do the last one last night. I didn't end up getting around to it. But like it's one of those things where like everyone and their mom said that they were amazing, and they were amazing. They've been great. Like there was never like people said they're great. They're great because I feel like a lot of times it's like people say it's great. Oh, I didn't like it as much because the overhype. Like I didn't get that with this. So I loved those. Connor, I started. You're gonna kill me, Connor. I started two shows this week. I shouldn't have done it. I do this a lot where it's like, I have time to start this new show. And then I watch it. I'm like, oh, wait, I don't. So I did finally start The Bear, which I am going to keep doing weekly.
Okay.
I did like the first 2 episodes of The Bear. I thought it was really fun.
Bear's easy enough to get through. It's like 20 minutes.
It is. I could do it in like a week and it'll be good.
Yeah.
And then I started Succession, Connor.
You started
Succession?
Man.
I did the first episode because it was like, oh, Fringe is ending. I'll have time to just sit. And I realized, all these new shows are starting. I'm not going to have time. Wow. So I might just pause at the pilot for now and circle back around. But I did actually really like the pilot of Succession.
I made a list last year of all of my favorite TV shows, and I'm looking at the list right now because it's literally coming up on a year since I made it, and Succession is still at the top of that list.
Yeah,
Succession's I think it's like 29 on my top 50,
Mm-hmm.
Which that's still pretty high. But I think Succession has a really interesting first episode because they do a lot of things in that first episode, character-wise, that are not at all connected to anything from episode 2 onwards. Like Roman, for example, has there's a whole element to Roman's character in the first episode that just isn't part of his character at all going forward. They never address it. But I mean, that's just pilots in general. They usually film them like a year sometimes in advance of when the actual show is shot. So.
Yeah, things shuffle.
That's fair.
Yeah.
My connection with that show is so deep because I love family dynamics. Like a lot of people will kind of get into the notion of like, well, why are you so interested in these rich assholes who are destroying the world? But for me, it's genuinely about family business, the family business dynamic mixed with the mental illness aspect. I worked in mental health for like three years. I studied for like a year, and I'm like switching my careers right now. But for the most part, like it's not a show I enjoy watching. It's just a show that I feel a deep connection to. Because the characters are all so real. They're archetypes. Each of them are really strong archetypes as to what like happens in certain family dynamics and the power struggles. And that show is it's very important to me, honestly.
That's completely fair. I can see that for sure. It's it is a show that like I think all of the characters are so distinct and all represent like a very particular kind of thing that you can see kind of that where it's like easy to latch on.
It's not a perfect show, I don't think, but I think a lot of what they get right is remarkably unsettling in terms of like, wow, that is so on the money. Like the older sibling or the middle child and the person in power who could be the father, it could be the mother, it could be the oldest sibling, and it's just all really well done. The addiction aspect, the perverted aspect, it's just wonderful.
I love the show, but I think one of my my main issues with it is just I really hate that shaky cam, like handheld zoom ins they do every 2 seconds in the show where it's like it zooms in on somebody's face and you're like, I feel like I'm watching a found footage documentary here.
It's like when is Jim going to be on screen?
Yeah. Like, all right.
I liked it in the first episode, and then actually I was going to ask you, do they keep doing that? And it sounds like, they do.
Yeah, it's kind of a staple of the show is like the handheld look to it, which I get why they do it.
Especially the Zoom thing you described. Like, that is such a thing they do.
Yeah.
It's very Disney Channel. Like, it feels like when they do these close zooms in, it's like, bum, you know? Which is like,
yeah.
But no, I thought the first episode was a lot of fun.
I really love that composer, Nicholas Britell.
Yeah.
And half the reason I even, like, was there for Andor episode 1 when it came out was that composer. The other half was Tony Gilroy's interviews, and like I'm not a big Star Wars person. I just read Tony Gilroy's interviews, and I was like, yeah, I trust this man.
Yeah,
and I was right too.
Yeah, no, Andor is something so special. Like I'm so excited for season 2 of that. I can't wait.
Me too. I totally finished that show. Totally.
You started Succession, which you didn't finish Andor yet.
Talk about disagreements. That's why
I've watched the first season of Andor maybe like 8 times.
Oh, wow.
I've seen it so many times.
I've only seen it the once so far. I'm going to be rewatching it before season 2 comes out.
It's another one where it's like a good song. I can't stop listening to it.
It's a really good song.
I didn't dislike it or anything. It didn't hook me as much as I wish it would have. I'm also just not a huge Star Wars guy, so that's probably why.
That's fair.
I do just want to mention though, like I got through a bit of Walking Dead since you were last year, Connor.
We talked a little bit about it.
We talked about it in our group chat. I did all of season 9, which you were hyping up since like the beginning. I was like, all right, I need to get through this season 9, and it was like either my second or third favorite season of the show. Loved season 9. I couldn't believe how much I loved it because I was kind of like waiting to be like, all right, Rick's gone. It's time to hate the show. Like time for it. And I was like, no, this is like properly my favorite stuff the show has done. Like, sure. I think that makes it like all the more impressive that like you check out characters like Rick and Maggie, and it's a very 5-year time jump, which is risky in any show. Like, and that's always a risk when you do that. And I just thought it was like some of the best stuff I've seen from the show in a while. Like, it was just so good. Loved what they did with like Negan. Loved the the Judith stuff. Like, Judith was such a surprise because I should have expected it. I should have expected that they would do that because I knew she grew up, and I was like, oh, maybe they just like, I don't know, she went on long enough she was able to have a note. I don't know why I thought, but it makes sense. You would have to age. You had to do at the time jump to make her like a little kid. So I thought 9 was great. And also, like, the ending, like, the episode 15 moment, like, you were kind of, like, preparing me for, like, something's happening. And I was like, all right, I'll wait to see what happens. Phenomenal moment. Great moment. That was.
Season 8, Season 9, and Season 10 feel like... Oh, I know they changed showrunners between Season 8 and Season 9. But, like, those 3 seasons feel so different. It just... Yeah. In terms of quality, but even just, like... I feel like, in terms of the characters, it feels like each season is so... drastic in the changes between them each. Like season 9 is so amazing, and then season 10 is, I don't even think season 10's like terrible. Like I don't think it's anywhere near the worst kind of the show, but I still think season 10 is such a massive step down from season 9 in so many ways. And after they steered the show so right with season 9, it was kind of upsetting.
No, I'm on 10. I think I did the first 12 of 10 so far. So I'm kind of in that middle point, halfway through, I guess. And I'd say it's like easily the least I've enjoyed the show. And I'm having like a really difficult point with it because I think like the bad of 8 is clearly like way worse than what's going on right now. And I'd say probably 10 is probably like, if I'm talking quality, like it's overall a better made show or whatever. But like I enjoyed 8 much more than season 10, which I hate saying, especially that back half. Because as I talked about last week, I actually liked the back half of season 8 quite a lot. Like I thought what they were doing was pretty fun. But again, I need to see kind of where we go. Like you told me my next episode's really good. I keep hearing from people with like those COVID, a couple of those COVID episodes are really solid as well. So there's
one of them I'm absolutely in love with, and it's not the one that most people are. There's 2 episodes that like people like a lot from the COVID episodes. I like the 2 of them as well, but there's one of them that I think is just fantastic, and it's not the one that most people think is the great one. So I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on it when you get to it.
Yeah, it's so weird to be in like the somewhat COVID era because like I do remember, like I remember being talked so much about during the COVID era. I remember looking at that, like there was a big FOMO that was happening because it was at that time no other TV shows were on because the COVID stuff, right? There's we didn't have time. So during COVID, like a lot of people were talking about it. And I was like, man, I wish I could be part of this conversation. The Arrowverse stuff isn't on. There's nothing else on TV.
Was that around the same time as Superman and Lois? Or was that a year earlier?
Walking Dead would have been a year earlier. I think Walking Dead season 10 had their COVID episodes in October 2020. And then Superman and Lois was like February 2021.
What an era.
Yeah. It was still pretty prime COVID, I think.
It was, it was like right in the middle of it.
Yeah. which was impressive. What that show was able to do, especially like, comparatively to the other Arrowverse shows at the time, where it's like it was weird because I couldn't blame shows like Flash and stuff for having these bad seasons because it's like, yeah, they're in COVID, I get it. And then you had Superman and Lois, which literally aired right after them. No, it was Superman and Lois first and then the Flash, which made it even worse because I would watch.
Yeah, Flash was like March, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they were showing this like peak, and then it was like, oh yeah, the Flash season 7 was right there. Which was tough.
Just made me even more angry at the Flash at the time. I was like, Superman and Lois is doing so good every week.
It was hard.
Like, there's so many things that like you could theorize why that was, and one of them was Legends of Tomorrow had a 16 episode count, and I always thought that show was really well constructed. At least the first 3 seasons. I love season 4. It's really goofy, but like season 3 of that show is phenomenal. I kind of want to rewatch Legends of Tomorrow altogether anyway, but it's 16 episode counts, and same with Superman and Lois. And it's like the Flash, like, what are you guys doing? Like, why are you guys still doing 22 episodes?
Yeah.
Like, if you just lower your episode count and just really sit down and write these episodes, like, I don't know, like, it was remarkable. It's remarkable to think about.
Like they stuck to their 23 episodes, but they tried the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. format, and they still couldn't do it.
No.
Like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gave them a great format of doing the little pods, and it still didn't help.
It's so sad, because that, I feel like, would have been a perfect formula for The Flash. Like, have these 8 episodes, mini arcs, twice a season. There's so many Flash villains and storylines you could do, so it's like, oh, you can have these double storylines. And in theory, that's an amazing idea, but they just did not execute them well, I didn't think.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a bit of, like, beating a dead horse here, but I always think about my initial feeling of what a Flash show would be like back in 2013 when like he was on Arrow before he became the Flash, and I was like, what is this show going to be like? And I always envisioned something like his New 52 comic where he's literally just working alone.
Yeah.
And like how exciting the idea of like watching him work alone. And I kept like, whenever I looked at Grant Gustin back then, I kept seeing like a mixture of Chris Evans and Andrew Garfield. And I was like, man, imagine this guy working alone as a superhero vigilante. Like, this is going to be crazy. And like, I know that everyone's talked that to death, but like, that is something that has always bothered me. Like, after all the years, like they just couldn't help themselves.
They couldn't get rid of it. We need to keep the cast up, but even though they're easily the worst part of the show. Like,
how special would it have been if we got like a season or even like a longer arc where he's just like by himself? I don't know. Like, it would have been so special.
It's tough because like you definitely have like contracts like issues with that, and there's also a thing where you can't have Grant Gustin in every shot because that would be very expensive, right? So I definitely get having a supporting cast. That's something you need to have, but like you definitely could have executed, because I mean, like Superman, not to like go back to Superman and Lois, how much I love that show, but like I think they do that very well, because where Superman 90% of the time he is the only hero, like he is the only person, but you have this gigantic cast, like you have like Langs and you have the Irons, and they're all kind of doing their separate things. I think if you could have done that with the Flash, it could have maybe been better.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you guys. How do we feel about Kyle Cushing? This is like a respect test. There's no wrong answer here. I love talking about Kyle.
I still kind of think
depending on the episode, I have a different answer. Depending on each episode.
Totally.
Because like I was literally talking about that like over on Twitter today, where like that diner scene from the last season, where like he gets up to like help Kent, and then he was like no, and he's like, damn, Kent, like that's such a good scene. And like there's episodes where I'm like, Kyle's the best character, and then but oh no, he just cheated on his wife. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, that's like, it though. It's like every time they try and make you like him, they're like, oh, by the way, he's also a cheater. And it's like that, and you're like, all right, well.
It's too bad he won't be a part of the new season, but maybe it's for the best. I personally am more in the middle, but I enjoy him more than I don't. And he's just a good everyman character when it comes down to, and I like his dynamic, like as the fireman who's saving people, but then like it's interesting that that's his role like in his career, and then also working with Jonathan, and it's fascinating.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm gonna be curious because like he's only going to be in a couple of episodes next season, so I'm wondering if it's going to be if it'll help his character. They maybe not have time to take him down a path that's annoying.
I bet it's gonna be one scene, and he's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I've been doing really good with my girlfriend or something random," and then it'll be just a nice little bookends.
I could see
I
that.
think
Yeah.
he's in. Is it 3 episodes? I think so. He's in a little bit. Like I think he's in more than Lana and Sarah, which is
Yeah,
kind
Sarah
of
will be
damn,
like,
okay.
"What are you doing here?" And then it'll be like his final scene. Like, that's what'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, I think we're gonna be hopping into some news stories this week. Like we were saying
Let's do
prior,
it.
there's been a lot of stuff this week. There's been quite a few things to talk about. Connor, we're gonna start with you. We got some Xbox news, and you sent me this
Oh, we
yesterday. I was
did.
like, oh wait, what's happening with
We
Xbox?
did.
It's always something with
Yeah.
Xbox, apparently.
What is controversy happening? No, yeah. So they shut down Arcane Austin, which are known for Prey, the Dishonored series, Deathloop, as well as the recent Redfall, and then they shut down Tango Gameworks, which is known for The Evil Within, and their most recent game, Hi-Fi Rush, which Hi-Fi Rush did very, very, very well. It was made available over on PlayStation recently. It's a game that was massively successful for Xbox as a brand and was a lot of people's Game of the Year contender for last year, which for an Xbox game to be doing that lately is insane.
Right.
And they had pitched Hi-Fi Rush 2, I think, as recently as the morning of when they found out they were shut down. And then in the comments that were made by one of the Xbox exec producers after shutting down these companies,
we need
these
more
studios,
small games.
Yeah, he said we need more games such as Hi-Fi Rush. Why did you shut them down then? So it seems like there's. Oh, he also said alongside of that, he said that the reason why he shut down these studios is because they were pitching games that were years away. Why would you pitch a game that's going to release? Yeah, they were just pitching games that were a couple years away, which games take 5 to 10 years to make sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're pitching a game, of course it's years away. If you don't pitch a game.
They also have proof of concept. They have a format down. It's not like they're making something brand new. It's a sequel to something they've already made.
Exactly. They've got tons of the assets already. Like, it's going to be so quick to get that out. And after all of the good press the first Hi-Fi Rush got them, that's insane. Now, Redfall, on the opposite end, did really badly for Xbox. But Prey and Dishonored are both really popular games and franchises. And, like, I don't know. I think Redfall's kind of in this gray area because there was a whole season pass that people bought into that the DLC from that season pass is now never going to be made because they don't have a chance to because they've been shut down. So there's going to be some legal issues there. But it feels like Microsoft are just sort of throwing money at a wall and then yelling at the wall when the wall isn't making good things. And then they're going to take out a hammer and smash the wall then when it doesn't give them a good game or it doesn't make them money.
I might be mistaken, but is Arcane working on Blade? Is that who's working on Blade, or is that a different company?
A version of Arcane is working on Blade because there's Arcane Austin.
So how is Arcane is Blade going to be okay? Like,
I think Blade is fine because I think Arcane has 2 studios, and the one that they have I think that's, let me see here.
It's like, so then who? It's like, I'm so curious then, because if it's the Dishonored team, the former Dishonored team, or the former Prey team, and it's like which team got to be saved to do Blade? Like, that's just such politics. Like, that's so rough to be like. That's rough.
There's Lyon in France. That's the other Arcane studio. So they're the ones working on Blade. They're fine, but they're not the main kind of studio. Like Arcane Austin was the main studio. You know, they're the ones putting out the most games, putting out all of this sort of stuff. So now it's made a lot of things work. Now, a big theory is that a reason why these studios were shut down is because the next Fallout game is going to be 10 years away at least. Bethesda pipeline for their games at the moment is pipeline, but Bethesda's sort of development timelines for their games at the moment are insane. Skyrim came out in 2011. The next Elder Scrolls game is going to be out.
It came out last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that.
It did get re-released every single year on every single console since 2011. But they're like the core first game, 2011, and it's the Elder Scrolls 6 is probably like 2027, 2028 if we're lucky.
Wow.
And it's another 5 to 7 years after that before Fallout 5 comes out. So the theory is that because they've said that a lot of these studios' personnel are going to be reallocated to other parts of Bethesda because all of these studios are under ZeniMax, which is the owner of Bethesda. So theory is that they're all being sent to Bethesda Game Studios or Obsidian to help start getting work on Fallout 5 or Fallout New Vegas 2 or whatever they're doing next, which that's incredibly worrying. People are worried about Machine Games now. Machine Games are known for Wolfenstein, which is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. They've also got the Indiana Jones game coming out later this year. and there's a worry now that if Indiana Jones is in any way unsuccessful, Machine Games is gone. So it's just an absolute mess over there at Xbox. Like they bought Activision Blizzard, mainly for Call of Duty, and they've done nothing with that so far. They spent, I forget, I don't know what the money they spent. It was like $60 billion they spent on Activision Blizzard, something insane. Like I don't know, I don't know how you spend $60 billion on a game studio and expect to make money off of that. Like it's just Xbox being stupid. It's like I've seen so many memes of people being like, Sony could literally shoot themselves in the foot and still win the race because Microsoft already jumped off a bridge and just didn't even try and give competition. Like Nintendo wins all the time because Sony and Microsoft are just not even trying, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, it's not.
I mean, just as someone, I'm not a gamer. Like I don't play that much games I want.
Lots of games.
Oh yeah, totally. I played that one game.
Last of Us and Red Dead and Guardians of the Galaxy.
I have not started Red Dead.
You started Guardians of the Galaxy.
I did. I played for like an hour and I haven't got back. No, but I mean, just as someone from the outside on the game industry and stuff like that, like it is always just looking at me like, what's the new drama that's happening over there? Like it always feels like it's something new. It's just some new issue. We had like the leaks with like the Sony leaks that happened like back in the fall, and I remember that was a massive thing. We've talked on the since you've joined the show, we've had multiple things of like it's Xbox again. It's like oh boy,
they're
what's happening now? Yeah, so
there was a big Sony controversy like 2 weeks ago with Helldivers, where they tried to force Sony accounts through in countries that didn't have like a Sony network there or PlayStation network there, which meant that Helldivers was banned in 177 territories.
If it got delisted and they reversed it, if they reversed their ruling of, forcing people to link a PlayStation account, but the game already got delisted places, I wonder if they reversed that delisting. Like, how much damage is irreversible from this? Like, that's...
I saw that a lot of places it hasn't been delisted yet. That it's like... Okay. The refunds have all gone through for a lot of places, but like in terms of just the delistings, like it takes a lot longer to get that fixed because it's up to the actual countries and the actual sort of governments that oversee games in those countries.
What an annoying situation.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys remember Scalebound?
I do, yeah. The game that never came out.
The game that never came out, the dragon game. I think the Xbox situation is really fascinating because it goes back to 2013, and full disclosure, like I was the kid growing up who had the PlayStation 3, and every one of my other friends had the 360s, and it was all cool and fine, but like I was always like, everyone was elitist about their purchase, right? But I always felt like the first party studios of PlayStation were really cool, and they were putting out a lot of great first party games, and there was a lot of things I was jealous about of the Xbox players in terms of like out of game party chat, for example, So there's like good things on both sides, but it's just insane to me after all these years. Microsoft never quite figured that out. And I understand them buying these studios is supposed to be like an effort to like create more first party experiences, or even just helping make more games, like so to think, like so to speak, like they think that it's a good idea. And as you said, it's just a bunch of like really bad decisions. I want to ask you guys about something kind of like an ethical question. Okay. I went to the Steam page of Disco Elysium recently, and one of the highest reviews that was rated on the review side was, "Don't buy this game. The money towards this game does not go to the devs. It is imperative that you pirate this game." And I just thought that was like a really fascinating thing to see that like on the top of the reviews. So in terms of like Hi-Fi Rush, I'd like, and I'm not like suggesting like anything. I just want to know your guys' opinion on stuff like this. Like if Hi-Fi Rush is not going to get a sequel and those people are all fired, do you guys feel that way about like stuff like this, like as like radical as other people do when it comes to moments like this? Like, is it ethical to pay for Hi-Fi Rush right now, or
for Hi-Fi Rush? I think it's an interesting situation because so much of the music in that game is based around the current licenses and current. It's like actual copyrighted music that they put into the game. If if the publisher's gone now, the studio's gone, that means that eventually that game is gonna be taken down from Steam because the licenses have run out on the game, where like they don't have the licenses for the music anymore. They have to remove it. So I think
That's really
piracy for
confusing.
games, it's really confusing. I think piracy
Because
for
I have
games
the
is important
Avengers
for that
game
reason.
right now, and that was like, oh, we can't keep this game up because we can't keep paying for the Marvel license.
Yeah.
I have the game installed still. So it's just like, so does that mean people will still be able to have Hi-Fi Rush, or will there be a patch that removes all of this music? So it's like really fascinating, but I have no idea what do they do?
I mean, it used to happen with the old GTAs with up until GTA 5. They're like, you can't get the original versions of GTA like 4 legally anymore that has the original music in it because the music has expired. So the only way to get that is through piracy. And so I think, for that reason, like games preservation, piracy is important to keep the original version of games available. So like, I mean, I'm never going to advocate for, hey, pirate this game, pirate that game sort of thing. Even though the money isn't going to the devs and stuff like that, sometimes I still think unless there's a situation where if you don't pirate this, unless there's a situation where the game is only available through piracy, I think I probably wouldn't go for it like that. But like if it's a case of the original version of the game is only available if you go looking for it outside of the official stores.
I used to have a file of the theatrical cut of Star Wars on my computer, I lost the file. Like I downloaded that file in 2015, like before Force Awakens came out, and like I don't know where the file went. And I always think about how I really want to find a copy again, and how like it's gonna take really bad, different channels that aren't official channels to do that.
Sure.
I think the original copy is... Sorry, go ahead, Darren.
No, like, I'm not a gamer, so I feel like I can't really speak too much on the situation, but like going on in other things, like last year and a half ago when we were going through all like the tax write-off stuff with like your Warner Brothers and stuff, and like you have like these shows that were literally getting erased from the internet. Like there are some of these shows you weren't able to watch anywhere, and there were these accounts being like, here's a way you can download all these shows.
I liked Willow, even though it was a little bad, and I'm sad Willow is just nowhere to be found anymore. That's crazy to me.
So, I cannot imagine the idea of like spending all this time working your butt off for a project, good or bad. I don't care if it's good or bad. The fact that like they worked on this for probably years, and it came out for what? Maybe it was out available for a year, and now it's gone.
Not even like 6 months, I don't even think. I think Willow is up for maybe 7 or 8 months, and then they're like, we're pulling it before like a year's gone by. Like, that was wild.
That's so bullshit. I hate that. And some projects didn't even get to come out. That's ridiculous to me. I mean, we're still dealing with it. We have like the Acme stuff, where every month was like, well, maybe it's not deleted. It's like, come on, just put it out. I don't
playing with the hearts and minds of people who worked on the movie and like suggest, we're gonna sell it to another studio. Like we're gonna try to sell it. We're gonna try to sell it, and it's like no one's buying it. You guys have it. You have like a dying streaming service or whatever. Like you're a dying company. I really don't like like what David Zaslav's whole thing is about. He loves reality TV and like just what a mind of his. Like
it's baffling, honestly.
And he hasn't even seen it. That's the thing that pisses me off the most. He doesn't know if it's good or bad. That could have been $1 billion movie. Probably not, but like it could have been. He doesn't know. It could have been a masterpiece. We don't know. Like
a cult classic, if you will.
It could have been. Yeah. I mean, look at Space Jam. Space Jam, by like critic standards, isn't like a masterpiece, but like it's a masterpiece to so many people. Like that's childhood. But we're gonna be jumping on to our next topic here. A crazy topic. One we got some like maybe Arrowverse news for the first time in a while. Tom Cavanaugh, along with directing the Superman Lois series finale, Tom Cavanaugh will also be making an appearance. So
I thought the appearance is because he's not directing the final. That somebody else is directing the final, but Todd Elwing asked him would he appear in the final instead since he's not directing it.
Gotcha.
I think somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Okay. So this came out like a panel earlier inside the week. He was talking to some people and he's like, he asked me to make an appearance. I'm making an appearance. Connor, let's start with you in this one. Sure. I mean, obviously we're both Arrowverse fans. We both like Tom Cavanaugh. Pretty much most of the time we like Tom Cavanaugh. Yeah. We like Superman Lois. what's your thoughts on him maybe appearing in this final season? Where do you think we're going with this?
I mean, I think the likelihood is that it is a new character for Superman and Lois, mainly because it's still Todd, the guy who did Flash, who worked on Flash for 6 seasons, and was the showrunner for 2 of those seasons. Or no, he worked on it for the first 5 seasons, was it? And then was the showrunner for 4 and 5. I don't know, something like that. But I think he probably, the way Tom worded it, it sounded to me like Todd was just like, we can't have you directing the final, but you want to just cameo something? You want to just like be in this scene? Like I could see him showing up as, I don't know, like a lawyer or something like that. That's here to give legal advice to like Lois about changing the name of the Smallville Gazette or something really small like that. Like I think it's probably not going to be a Wells, because honestly I don't know where a Wells or a Neobard would fix.
Well, clearly it's going to be Sherlock. Sherlock is going to come back.
I forgot.
And he's going to solve all their problems. He's going to take down Lex's mastermind plan. He's gonna save the day. It's going to be Sherlock, guys. I'm calling it.
Sherlock is actually inside the Doomsday. He's in there with Bizarro. They're both inside of Doomsday.
Is Elizabeth Henstridge? Is she directing another episode? I loved her episodes, and I also love her on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I hope she's coming back.
I haven't seen anything.
Sure.
Sorry, it's a little bit of a random thing to say.
Remember the Pink Ranger did Amy JoJo Johnson? Did 1 episode as well.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I think it was
season 2. Yeah.
Season 2.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know that was like a sick little like crossover thing that happened like within my brain. Like Power Rangers meets Superman. Like it was a cool little moment.
Yeah. By the way, I really feel like it's significant that he's going to be in it. I think it's super significant because it's probably not a Wells, but it's Tom Cavanaugh. Like I don't know. It's
a big deal. Yeah.
Like, what did you guys think of David Ramsey showing up as Diggle and then it not being the Diggle we know? And him even referencing like, "Oh, I had a big decision to make. I didn't want to be Green Lantern." Like, how do you guys reconcile with that? Like,
listen, I think our opinion on like how they ended the second season, we've had many conversations about that. Like it's been many hills and valleys, and I think I've mostly kind of come terms to it being separate at this point. Do I like it? Would I have rathered of it have been canon and stuff? Yeah, I would have. I miss it being part of the Arrowverse. The Dave Ramsey stuff is just messy. Like at that point,
real messy.
The first time in season 1, whatever, right? At that point in my mind, they were still 100% thinking.
He references Oliver. He references fighting alongside Oliver. How can that not mean Crisis?
I think like my headcanon is still that season 1 is canon and then season 2 kind of exits canon. Like that's how my brain kind of works with that. But the fact that you brought him back in season 3 is just such like a salt in the wound. Like within seconds, like within minutes, we're like, we are on our Earth without heroes. We're like, okay, and then Diggle shows up. And it's like, but how is it canon or is it like that's such a weird thing?
It's like why is Argus allowed to be canon? Superman and Lois. That's so weird.
Or multiversal, I guess.
And like,
I just would have taken Melissa Benoist. Like, if you're gonna do that for David Ramsey, why not give us a Melissa Benoist type of thing? Exactly. It could have been an original character. It could have been Power Girl for all I care. Like, it's just strange to me. Like, same with Grant Gustin. Same with so many characters. I believe that even if they weren't the canon version from a previous show, I think just having someone appear would have been just a nice thing. So it's like if you're gonna do that for Diggle, it's just it's so odd to me. Like I would have been fine with them saying, "Oh, a new version of this character of Supergirl is gonna appear," and it's not the version from Supergirl, but it's played by Melissa Benoist. Yeah. But I'm sure that creates a lot of confusion because that's the same thing we were hearing about Charlie Cox with Daredevil was like a lot of people would still debate whether or not, and I think the debate is over. By the way, it is the same Daredevil.
Absolutely.
That was like what happened when he first came back was it's like him. Yeah. It's not really him as people have famously said. No, I would have been fine with that for Superman and Lois after everything that went down with that show. I think a lot of people had accepted already that it was an Arrowverse. So at the very least, I don't know. I think Supergirl 100% deserves to be in an episode of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is because again, because they have this weird balance of like it's not part of the Arrowverse, but they're still using Arrowverse actors. Like again, you have Diggle, you had Lucy from the early.
I was going to
seasons
mention that because
of
that's in
Supergirl.
season
a
2.
weird one too.
She was in season 1 of Supergirl. That's such a deep
That's
cut to go
so
back and get.
weird.
Like,
So yeah, and like that proves that like the decision to move Earth happened last minute.
It
Like
happened
that was not
really
an
late.
early season 1 decision or season 3 decision. That was like within the last 10 days. You know what? It probably happened when all the shows got
reshoots.
canceled.
Could have
When
been
like
reshoots.
Batwoman and Legends got canceled, they're like, oh yeah, we're moving Earth. That's probably when
I think they thought that because they just had the Crisis storyline, they had an out. They just did it in the least, like they fumbled it, right? They could have, because Lucy was much different than she was in season 1 of Supergirl than when she appeared in Superman and Lois. Like that was a good example of like same actor, pretty different execution. Like wasn't she when she wasn't like necessarily part of the military in Superman and Lois, but then she was in Supergirl, right? Like
pretty heavily.
So I don't know. It's just such a weird thing to think about. Like they fumbled it. That at least that part of it. And by the way, like I love Superman and Lois for what it is, but they fumbled that.
No, they absolutely did. Like it's hard not to talk about this, especially like when you're big Arrowverse fans like we are. Like it's impossible to ignore that aspect of it because it's so obvious. It was so last second. It was like they were trying to make both sides of the fandom happy, the people who didn't want it to be Arrowverse and the people who wanted it to be Arrowverse, until they couldn't anymore and they had to make a decision, and they made a decision. But because they made a decision so late, it just looked like it came as a bit of a slap in the face.
And false promises, kind of.
Yeah,
and like to be fair, I actually do think it is like in the long run the right decision. Like if it was still Arrowverse, I'm not sure if they got to season 4. Like I think that would have been like a season 3 like cancellation, and maybe they would have gave like I don't know, another one of those shows.
It's definitely a plus to like pitch the show to a friend and be like, you don't need to watch anything else.
Yeah,
like you can just watch it. Sure, I do think that Harrison Wells actor Tom Cavanaugh, like I do think that there's something to that. Like his face showing up is going to like make people have this conversation again. Yeah. Like that's going to make this conversation happen again as soon as he appears. So I think it's a significant thing that they're bringing him to have an on-screen appearance. Like it's going to bring up a lot of this again.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if it's just like a random character, I kind of think that's not a smart choice. Like I think because like no one's going to be like, oh hey, it's Tom Cavanaugh. Everyone's going to be like, what the heck is Harrison Wells doing? What's he doing? Like no one's going to be like, oh, it's a nice little cameo. Like,
and my headcanon will be that he is just another Wells who will have a different name, who will be a completely different character. But as far as I'm concerned, what we've learned of this TV universe is that if I see that face, he is technically a Wells. I don't care what anybody has to say about that. Like, that's just the rules that they've set up. Like, he's Wells to me no matter what. Like,
yeah.
I do wonder because, you know, it's crossed my mind, maybe we get a Stargirl-esque ending to Superman and Lois, kind of how they did it with like Jay Garrick and stuff like that. Like, and we end it with like Thawne coming through a portal or whatever, like come catch me, a Superman or whatever, and it implies he's going to go fight an Avenger with Arrowverse, whatever. Yeah. I'd be okay with that. I think Connor, you also mentioned the idea where like maybe we see a flashback with Lex, and like he's the same, like he ends up being in the same cell as like a Thawne or something like that.
I was gonna say that would be current. Like it'd be cool. Like the end of the season, Clark's throwing Lex back in Bel Rev or wherever prison he's throwing him in Metropolis, and like Eobard Thawne is like in a cell the next over, and it's like
it is pretty funny that that Superman and now his status in the wider Arrowverse is the same status Supergirl had at the beginning of her show, separated on a different Earth. And to speak to that, I don't see why they couldn't have just said, okay, here's Superman and Lois. It's its own show, but Tyler Oakland's version of Superman still exists in the Arrowverse. Yeah. Like what? Like you could have just separated them. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure they've got the costume still.
I'm just now also thinking, like, I don't know if Thawne would work in this universe because apparently there's no heroes to what they say. So I don't know if there would be a Flash here.
No, I'm saying it's our Thawne. Like he ended up on Superman and Lois' universe, and he's just lost.
That's
it up
fun.
there, and they don't explain it. Like they don't address like what time he's from. Just it's that Earth Prime Thawne. He's here for some reason.
Yeah.
Like he might have just blinked out of existence at some point in the end of like the Wells version of Thawne kind of just disappeared at the end of season 7, or season 8, where he became the what was that? Where he like all the forces ran into him, and then he like got the big black suit, and then he disappeared.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or maybe you could tie it into like Earth X, where he's like looking for Earth. He's looking to get to Earth X, and he lands there for a while.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah. And then it ties into like his Earth X cameo, where it's like, I fought him. He's fast. I'm faster.
Yeah, but wouldn't that all not be the same?
Not post Crisis. You're right. God damn it. Never mind.
Is he like outside?
They wrote themselves into so many corners with this.
I keep forgetting Crisis like makes everything prior, not really canon. That's right.
It's like pre-Arrow season 8. Nothing really counts anymore.
But there was still an Earth X. It just, I don't actually understand how Earth X happened.
I think it was, because they clarified that then season 2 of Flash still happened, but Zoom wasn't from another Earth.
It was just
he was
here,
actually from Earth Prime. So I don't know what they said about Earth X.
Speaking of Earth X, my favorite Arrowverse character is still Martin Stein.
Me too.
He's
Love
great.
Martin.
He's so good.
He's so cool.
They handled his exit really well.
Yep.
So good. All right, we have another Superman kind of thing to talk about, which kind of blew up the internet this week in a bigger way than I thought it was going to.
Oh yeah.
First look at David Cornsweet as Superman in the upcoming DCU film. Now, obviously, we've like dissected every DCU thing that has come out up until this point. Like, we have been covering this journey very thoroughly, and this feels like a big moment. This feels like a moment that we have seen the first look into the DCU. Now, the internet has, let's just say, it's been a very controversial couple of days when it comes to like what's happening with this all. Dino, let's start with you. Have you seen this photo? What kind of opinions on it? Where are you at with it?
I am someone who, just to start off, when it comes to Superman content, I am not someone who's very strict on like the rules of Superman and what you're supposed to do with him. I'm very open-minded when it comes to all Superman takes. I believe like the character is a large mosaic spanning many decades, and many iterations are part of that mosaic for better or worse. And when I look at this costume, I do have issues with it. When I look at it in terms of the vibe it's supposed to give off, I think that it's smart to kind of have him be like, oh, I'm going to work right now, and maybe I had a bad day last time I went to work. Like, that's the vibe I get from it, is like, he's the Superman crest is covered in a little bit of dirt, so I am getting the vibe of, I just had a bad day at work and I got to try again. Yeah, and I like that spirit, but I do think they kind of created a lot of weird conversations, especially like having the big laser in the background is so odd, and that's type of thing. I don't really nitpick things. I'm not in the business of like wanting to dislike something, but like when I look at this, I do think that they made some weird decisions. Like, I don't know why he has lines on him. Like, why does he have lines on him?
Yeah, it's a bit over-designed there.
And the lines, I can live with the lines, to be honest with you. I can also get behind some of the creases, and it's not like tight fitted. The boots are super odd to me. I'm so sorry that I'm getting into it like this. I only because of the lines. Like, I don't know why there are lines on the boots as well. Everything else about the boots, I think they're shaped nicely, especially at the top, as Superman's boots are usually designed like that. I think my bigger issue, and along with everyone else, is the collar, or the neckline. I think a lot of edits have like made it very clear how much better this exact same suit, without changing anything else, but only changing the neckline, it's instantly like better. And people have talked about how the cape coming out of the neckline is also usually better. Like, I love Daredevil's collar. I love the collar in the Batman. Like, there's a lot of cool, like, there's also that Spider-Man costume, like the World's End, or, there's that suit, that jacket costume that Spider-Man has in the Insomniac game, the first one. Collars are cool, guys. Like, I'm not anti collars here. I think I will get used to this, but it is like, whoa, I've never thought It reminds me of Injustice. I think that when I look at this, I'm getting more Injustice.
Give those vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you guys? I mean, I could talk about this forever.
No, sure. Connor, let's start with you, and then I can kind of give my take.
Okay. I mean, yeah, just kind of to say, for like, in terms of how I feel about Superman as a character, like he's my favorite fictional character of all time. I'm a huge Superman fan. Always have been.
I didn't know.
Yeah, wow, it's crazy. But I think I completely agree that this is a very unusual reveal. I don't think anybody expected this to be the reveal of the suit that they were going to do, and I'm not convinced it's a good first reveal. Now, in terms of not talking about the suit, just in terms of this picture, this is a very unusual first look for what needs to be the next. This first look should be depicting the future of DC for the next 10 to 15 years. Yeah. And I think a really dark look, which is an on-set picture that just has probably the volume behind it, but like primarily an on-set picture that is very dark with a Superman suit that's covered in dirt. I respect that James Gunn is almost trying to tell a story with this picture, that he's almost trying to tell already give you an idea of what Superman is as a character in the DCU straight off the bat. Like, that's really cool. But I think it's not comic book fans you need to convince with the Superman film here. You need to convince a general audience to give DC a chance again. And I'm not entirely sure a first look picture like this is something that's going to make the general audience give DC a chance again, because, you know, your first look at that doesn't exactly scream Superman to you. Like, of course, when you look, you see the iconic emblem. I'm wearing the emblem right now. Like, you see the iconic Superman crest, you see the cape, you see the blue. Like, yes, it's Superman, but at a first glance, yeah, it looks a little goofy. Now, in terms of the suit itself, I'm much more big on it than most. I think the boots look great. The boots, the trunks, and just the color of the bottom part of the costume in general, I'm a big fan of. I always think
the color's pretty great.
Yeah, I think the colors for Superman costumes always need to be brighter. The brighter, the better. The cape, I'm also quite a big fan of. And even the color, I think, looks really cool for the whole kind of, you know, this is Superman just getting up to go to his day job. He's very much like, it's another day at work sort of thing, you know. Got to get up, got to do it again. I really like that aspect of this is somebody who doesn't give up, that he's, you know, never ending battle. It's always another day. There's always another bad guy to fight. There's always another crime to stop. And he's getting up and he's doing it again. Doesn't have time to clean his suit. He's just got to get up and he's got to go again. I really, really, really like that sort of angle they're going at and the direction they're going at. But yeah, I think it's a very unusual reveal. Like, I don't know if you see all these fan-made versions of these posters, and the amount of people like showing off Superman comics covers, like Action Comics covers, some of the iconic ones, and being like
the All-Star on the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it'd be so cool if the first look was a recreation of one of these comic covers with David as Superman. And you can't help but think every single one of them would have been a much better impact than this.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like this is the first, sure, we've had castings already, but this is the first look at the DCU, and it is mostly negative.
I think that we're gonna like understand this a lot better when the film comes out, in terms of, we've heard a lot about Kingdom Come, and we learned a lot about how it's going to be flipped, instead of like him being near the end of his career and having all these other heroes who are more like anti-heroes, and like him having to come in and lead a better example. I think like what I'm imagining when I look at this is the lasers in the background. Nathan Fillion is getting destroyed by this laser.
Yeah, he's
that's what he's coming to do. He's coming to save Nathan Fillion. Yeah. He's like, oh god, like Nathan Fillion's been talking so much smack to me, and now I gotta put my boots on. Yeah, I think that's like, I'm trying to like go think ahead about like what exactly is happening here. Yeah. And just to share like a few thoughts, my biggest issue with all superhero costumes in the DC universe is the abs. I think like Batfleck's costumes are amazing, but like they always like add extra padding on the ads. And same with Superman and Lois, they draw the abs on the outside of his costume. I really, really don't like that. And so for this like first look, I do think he should have been standing up. We would have gotten a better look at the trunks. We still can't even see the shape of them. Are they shorts or are they underpants? And I do want to see his abs. I know that's such a nitpicky thing to say, but it's like I need to see this standing up.
It's hard to really tell what the suit looks like because the lighting is playing a heavy role, but also the fact he's kneeling like that, like it's creased up and stuff. And sure, it makes him more sort of a regular human style character. Like you can immediately tell they're not going with the Kryptonian angle for the character here straight away. They're going with a human sort of look at Clark. But I still think you're not getting a good look at what the actual suit's going to be. And if the suit is great, why aren't you showing that off? Why aren't you making sure people see how great the suit is? So
and if they're going to do something casual, why not have I guess it's not necessarily casual, but in terms of like going to the work aspect of this, I might have preferred, I honestly, and this is something that's not going to be a popular thing because it's about the Superman reveal, I would have preferred getting a first look at him as Clark and standing with Lois. Yeah, sure. I think that would have been even that would have been a classic thing. I just think that they've been making a really big deal about Rachel Brosnahan, and I think that would have been a cool first look too. Just have them both in their Daily Planet uniforms. I would have thought that would have been an exciting first look because I think that's something that people missed out on in the Snyderverse, and I'm a very big fan of Amy Adams. I think a lot of people are very, very hypercritical about like the chemistry between Henry Cavill and Amy Adams. I thought she was great. I love all the Lois Lanes. I love Erica Durance. I love Margot Kidder. I love all the Lois Lanes. So I think that there could have been a lot of interesting ways to like show David Corenswet as this character. One of which would have been like just show us Clark in the glasses and show us like this wholesome guy.
Yeah.
There's that really.
What do you think about the suit?
No, I mean, I'll be honest, I feel like if I was just on my own, like if I didn't have the internet backlash, I'd be like, oh, that's a cool suit, and to move on with my day. Like, I feel like I wouldn't be having this in my ear. But now it's everyone being like, hey, look how bad the suit is. Like, all right, let me take a closer look. And the more I thought about it, I'm not, like, I don't love the lines. That's probably my big issue. I'm not sure if I love the collar or not. I gotta wait to see. I think my ultimate take is, though, like, I think it's going to be fine. Like, I think once he's in motion, once we get to see him standing up, once we get to see all this stuff, I think it's going to look fine. And the actual product, I bet it's going to look fine. I agree. I think I agree with what you guys are saying about, like, I think it's great, great concept, bad execution. Like like you said, I love the idea that he's just off to work doing his thing. Like, yes, there's a giant freaking like Godzilla thing outside. He's like, going back out there. You know, I love the trunks. I love the curl. I do kind of wish the emblem looked a little brighter. I think the suit in general, like, I think maybe like a lighter blue, especially with the kind of story that we're telling with Superman. Like, it seems like he's one of the only like hopeful superheroes out there. Like, it seems like, you know, like with the Authority and like Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl, like it seems like he's going to be the one, like he's like the Boy Scout and he's going to be the one everyone's looking to. So I would have liked to be a little brighter, but we'll see. I was just very shocked though about like the size of the outlash. Like, I thought, oh, it's whatever, and then it's like everyone is like, this suit killed my dog, and it's like, I hate it so much. It's like the worst comic book suit I've ever seen. It's like, all right, let's relax a little bit. Like, it's not that bad.
I think a lot of people really, really, really wanted the first look of the DCU to be a complete slam dunk, and I think a lot of people are a little worried that the very first look isn't perfect. That it's showing a lot of things that maybe should be avoided for what you need to be a successful DC film. Like, there's a lot riding on this film.
Have you guys seen the take that it is clearly, and I don't know if this is true, it's clearly an Empire magazine cover, that they didn't end up being an Empire magazine cover?
Yeah. Like you put like Variety on the top of it, or like Empire on the top of it. Yeah.
Like, it maybe wasn't supposed to be the first look, and somebody was saying somewhere, oh, they're filming out in public soon, and this is why they wanted to get this out as soon as possible. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like a timing thing, a timing error, where they could have just done something simple, like on Instagram, like, here's a photo of him in the suit, like, here's what it looks like. But at the same time, all the original suit reveals. If you look at the original images of Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill, and even Christopher Reeve, they're pretty cool photos. So it's like, yeah, like you want to put a cool photo out. Batfleck's black and white photo is a cool photo. The original, the Batman images, cool. Yeah. Just lots of style in terms of like how to do it. So like I do appreciate the style. I appreciate a lot about it. It just maybe didn't quite stick the landing for everyone. It's unfortunate that not everyone is like agreeing on it.
Yeah. I would have loved like something like this. Like I think it's not showing. Hold on. I probably would have loved something kind of like that, where it shows her, shows kind of like what Superman is, and kind of like the main like images you would think of that. Like maybe it's like Superman and Lois like in the sky, like on a cloud or whatever, just kind of
standing on the Daily Planet roof.
Yeah. That's probably what I would have gone with. But I would agree though. Like I think it being the first one is probably. I wonder if it was a thing where like James Gunn's on like the freaking like Peacemaker set, and they're like, "Here, this is what we did." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
He's like, "Yeah, sure."
With it. And then it's like, there's that community meme where he logs onto Twitter and everything's on fire. He's like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
Just to really quickly mention the timing thing, like I definitely think there's something to that, because look at the dates that everything related to Superman in the DCU has been announced on or shown on. Like they've made such a big deal out of dates like April 18th, February 29th, you know, big Superman days in the comics, like Superman's birthday, Superman's first appearance in Action Comics. A lot of people expected June to be the first look at the costume, because June would match up with Action Comics issue 1. May 6th? May 6th doesn't have any relevance to Superman in the comics that I know of, so it feels weird for them.
The day Batman and Superman blink to Captain America Civil War.
Oh yeah, that is actually true.
Remember when they were going to be on the same day?
Fight. That was wild. But like, yeah, I think it's a case of something that just wasn't supposed to be released this early, or was supposed to be the 4th or 5th look at the character and not the first. Things just messed up and it came out.
I bet that people got to James Gunn's head in terms of like, even I tweeted at James Gunn, and maybe I'm one of those people who's like guilty of this. Like I said something to him once, and I was like, if it gets leaked, it's going to be worse if it gets leaked than if he could just put it out officially.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Maybe it's something like that. And I was respectful, by the way.
And I still rather this than it get leaked. Like I'd rather them put it out on their own terms and it be bad than us see a really weird shot about him scratching his butt or something. Like,
exactly. Yeah, like
is this an AI image? That's what would happen.
And I still haven't. I've been seeing a lot of people say like, "Is this AI?" It's like, no, it just doesn't look great.
Yeah, just lighting.
Yeah, we have 2 more things here. Some MCU news, which was kind of nice. It's been a while since we've had some MCU news. Marvel Studios, good old MCU. Marvel Studios plans to now only put out 2 to 3 films and 2 shows every year. So, obviously, Connor, this is another one of those stories. It feels like we're just kind of coming back to.
Sure.
Obviously, we're always talking about the current state of the MCU, how they should put out less content, what they should kind of do for their format going forward. And this is like the exact number I've been saying for a while. I've always said 3 movies a year, 1 to 2 shows a year. That's kind of what I've always said. Let's start with you, Connor. I mean, obviously, like we've had conversations about like them like going back on content and like movies like Ant-Man 3 and Captain Marvel 3 and stuff like that maybe not happening now. Where are you at with this kind of format? Like, are you okay with only 2 to 3 films a year and 2 shows a year?
I mean, I definitely think, you know, for a little bit there, they were putting out too much too often. But I also think that it was just in the immediate aftermath of COVID, where they were trying to get stuff out because they really wanted to move their slate along, and COVID had really paused a lot of their slate. And like we only really had, I guess, 2021 and 2022 were the only years that had a ton of Marvel projects. In 2023, it started to slow down. 2024, we're barely going to have anything. But I think that the main problem here, more than the amount of stuff they're putting out, is Marvel needs to get out of their own way. The amount of behind the scenes problems they're having, it isn't related to the fact that they're releasing so much. It's just related to the fact that they're having so many script issues, or having so many director issues. They're just constantly changing plans. There's so much controversy surrounding certain cast members. Like, I don't know, I don't think this 2 to 3 films and 2 shows thing matters if they're not able to, you know, make Avengers 5 and 6
Yeah.
if they're not able to make Blade, if they're not able to make all these movies, because at that point they're just going to have nothing coming out anyway. Like, so I think Marvel are focusing on the wrong things. I think
I need Avengers to come out soon, man. Like at this rate, it feels like we're still like 4 to 5 years away from getting Avengers 5 to Secret Wars, and I think it's so important. I think people have almost already like moved on from Secret Wars. Like we've been talking about Secret Wars for so long now, and now it's like what's next after Secret Wars. It's like, wait, no, Secret Wars is 5 years away still. We're not even close to getting to that. I do think less is better. I do think, like, especially for a couple years now, like, it was 2022 where there was like 11 projects or whatever that came out last year. Last year we technically still had like 9 or whatever. Like, there's been a lot, and I do think that is an issue for some people, that they just can't keep up with everything that's coming out.
Yeah,
it's a lot, and I understand that. And like, as some, like, we've talked about this, like, I personally enjoy having like a project every month or whatever. Like, someone that likes to sit here and talk about this stuff, it can be nice. At the same time, though, I get like, okay, maybe it is better for us to scale back a little bit, really focus on some direct stuff. The one thing I am going to be very curious about, and I would not be a huge fan of this, is like, I think this is a perfect number. I think 5 MCU projects a year, that's a solid number. That's a real solid number. That's still most than like any other franchise going on right now. Like, I can't think of any franchise that's putting out 5 new projects out every single year. I just can't.
Star Trek.
Oh, well, you know what? Star Trek, that's fair. That's fair. What I am going to be curious about is this Marvel Studios as a whole, or is this just the MCU? Because from the sound of it, it's Marvel Studios. Because it's like, what about X-Men 97? What about the new
like
Spider-Man show?
Spider-Man.
What about, like some of these side projects? Like, X-Men 97's been great so far, and I've really been pitching, like, I would like more shows within this universe. I'd love if they brought back Spider-Man. I'd love maybe if you did like an Avengers spinoff or whatever you may be. So would it be like, we're not going to do that because we got freaking What If next year or whatever. Like, we don't have room for all these other side projects. That's my only fear with this. That's the only thing I'm like, because again, like, man, I can't stop talking about X-Men. It's been so good. Like, I'm so happy with it. And I want them to be able to feel like they can still explore with other what if Marvel projects, these other Elseworld stories. Yeah. And it kind of seems like that's what people want right now. Like, look at Spider-Verse. That's one of the most popular Marvel things. What if people have been really vibing with? So I don't want them to get. I don't want this to get in the way of that, I guess.
I think Marvel Zombies will be a bit of a sleeper hit.
Really?
Sure.
I just wanted to talk about the Arrowverse again for a moment in regards to this, because I think that I want to take us back to like 2014 rather, to 2019. We had like Supergirl on Monday night, Flash on Tuesday night, Arrow on Wednesday night, Legends of Tomorrow on Thursday night. Every 6 months we got Marvel Netflix season dropped all at once, and every 6 months or so we got a PG-13 Marvel MCU film, and then like less DC films in that era, obviously. Yeah. And for me, it's not really about like the amount of stuff that comes out. It's always going to be the quality, and it's going to be about catering to the people who are probably going to watch everything, but also catering to the people who aren't going to watch everything, and making sure that if someone is going to choose to watch something, that the thing they chose to watch, it's got to be appealing, and it's got to be good. And I think that you guys have said it really perfectly. They have too many cooks. They have too many behind the scenes issues. Yeah. I really loved watching She-Hulk. I never hate watched She-Hulk. I had a lot of issues with it though, and the fact that every week an episode came out, we heard more about VFX workers being negatively affected. Yeah. It just was a bad juju, bad vibes.
It was really bad luck.
And I just keep thinking about how wonderful the era of 2013 to 2019 was. Like, think about how Punisher season 1 came out the same month as Thor Ragnarok. And like, if you were having a conversation with someone that didn't know Marvel at the time, if one person could come up to you and be like, "Oh, I don't like all this superhero stuff. It's super violent. Like, this Punisher, like, it's crazy going on." Another person could come up to you and say, "Thor Ragnarok's so cringy. It's just a joke. Yeah. Like, what is this?" That was a wonderful time. The fact that you had two diverse projects coexisting at the same time from the same company, and I think that's what we're missing. I think what they've been missing in the past 2 or 3 years is catering to their aging audience. And I know that like that comes across as like elitist, as like, oh, screw them kids. And like I'm not.
They don't deserve
it. Yeah, like I'm not really like that. Like I love the Arrowverse. I love the cheesiness. I loved Kamala Khan, but I didn't love all the villain Kamala Khan was fighting. I didn't love the villain Moon Knight was fighting. And I think for the most part, my biggest issue with the Disney Plus shows is the finales. I don't think there's a single finale that is as good as an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finale or a Daredevil finale. And I think a good finale can save an entire mediocre season of TV.
Yep.
If it sticks landing, like it improves it.
I am very curious because it does feel like they are finally like understanding that they're trying to age up their audience. Like I think Deadpool is going to be a massive test for them to see will people show up for a rated R movie. I think Blade's also going to be rated R. I think I really do think if Deadpool 3 doesn't do well, which I don't think it will, I do think people are going to like that movie. I think it's going to do well in the box office. But if it doesn't, that could very much affect Blade. Be like, oh, people don't want to see a rated R movie. Let's scrap this, get rid of it. I think Daredevil is also going to be a huge test. Will people show up on Disney Plus for a mature project?
To be honest with you guys, I think that is the one. I think it is Daredevil. Like I think with Deadpool, they'll have a much easier time because they know comedy, they know action comedy, they know how to. Yeah. Hugh Jackman is going to be a huge draw, and even if it is just like it was fine, I think a lot of people are going to be really hyped about it. Like with No Way Home, I really love No Way Home, but there's a lot of people who are like, why wasn't that movie just the Daredevil crossover? Like, why are we doing the Daredevil crossover after the one where he was literally on trial for murder? Right? So I think that it's fair to say, like, Deadpool 3 was going to always be about Logan anyway, pre-Disney buying Fox. So that was always the plan. So it's unfair for people to be... because people perpetuate this idea, like, if it's a multiverse thing, it's not, like, a real organic story. And I kind of agree with that. Like, especially in terms of Spider-Man. Like, they kind of jumped the shark. I would have preferred Andrew and Toby showing up for like a film after a Daredevil crossover, but they've done it kind of backwards, and now it feels like they've jumped the shark. And Sony is like, we want to do multiverse again, and then
it's hard to put it back.
And thank God for him. He's like, no, like we should do a crime story. Let's go street level. So sorry, I'm going off tangents here, but I think
completely agree.
I think the point of what I'm trying to say is that that they really need to stick the landing when it comes to Daredevil, because they need to prove that they understand mature storytelling. They need to prove that they understand taking their time and being nuanced and trusting the audience's intelligence, I think, because I don't feel that respected by Marvel Studios in terms of that. And I know that's not a fair thing to say always, because they're just trying to have fun. They're trying to give us something that is some escapism that can put a smile on our face. But the word I have to use is profound. Like, there hasn't been something that made me feel a profound feeling in some time. I think Moon Knight made me feel that way in some ways, but then you hear about the director saying, oh yeah, we cut the best scene from the finale where he meets his mother and like has a moment with her. And I'm like, why do I have to hear about that? I see Hawkeye deleted scenes. I'm like, we had to cut things for time. You own the streaming service.
Yeah. Like, what time?
There should be a time limit. Yeah, no.
It's mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling.
It's just like 36 to 40 minutes long. Like, what do you mean cutting them?
The other thing, I'm so sorry that I'm going off about this, but like the other thing is like the novelty of Daredevil season 1 when it came out was you get 50 to 58 minute episodes, no ad breaks, no censorship, there's no fear, and it's all like deep dialogue. And then the only show from Disney Plus that's like that is Andor. So Andor was like that's the most confidence I've ever had for something like Daredevil Born Again, where I'm like, I actually am surprised to say that I like Andor more than Daredevil. Like, that's something I don't even like Star Wars that much at all. I just mean from a writing standpoint, a dialogue standpoint. Really well, and I never thought I would be saying something like that. Like, I truly, like, that was the one moment in time where I was like, this is what Marvel should be doing with TV. Like, they should be taking things seriously, taking things slow, but then still give us the goofy stuff. Like I said earlier, like Thor Ragnarok and Punisher coming out at the same time. I just think that we've been on one side of that spectrum for too long.
Yeah.
And we just need to give something for everybody, because I think a lot of people will accept the Kamala Khans a lot more. A lot of people will accept the goofy Mr. Knight scenes a lot more if you have something else to balance it out for the people who just want something a bit more profound and serious.
I think, not to go back to this, but I got to go back to it. I think Marvel like has literally just came up with like the perfect formula for what works, and I do think that is X-Men 97. Like that feels like the perfect balance of like if your kid walked into X-Men 97, there might be a couple shots that might scare them, but like it's not like they're going to have harm. But also it's like one of the darkest things I think Marvel has ever put out. Like not to spoil it for Connor or like anyone here who hasn't seen it, but some of the stuff they're pulling off with that show is so unbelievably dark. They're taking so many deep risks. And there's an idea that we talk about a lot on here where it's like Marvel is making products, not projects. To me, stuff like Andor, that's a project, or that's a project. X-Men, that's a project. Loki, that's a project. Guardian, that's a project. And then there's stuff like
Secret
Ant-Man.
Invasion.
You have the Marvel, Secret Invasion. I like the Marvels, but like that did still feel like a product, not a project. There's definitely a heart that's missing from a lot of these things. Even when I like the things, there feels like there's heart that's missing.
There's no passion for it.
Yes, a lot of passion is missing, and I genuinely do think that they are trying to fix that. Like to me, it feels like Kevin Feige, like he even said the other day, like, hey, I've heard y'all. I know that y'all don't like what's going on, and we're trying to reel back. We're trying to be like the underdog again. Like, I do think they are trying to make that fix.
Yeah.
We're just not going to see it for a couple years because the projects are still a couple years away.
By the way, sorry, what were you going to say? Well, you were going to say something about Avengers 5.
Yeah.
And how I just think it's strange that they ended a phase without a crossover.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that should have been Secret Invasion. I think they should have ended Phase 4 of Secret Invasion.
Oh, it should have been, yeah. I don't know why Secret Invasion was a TV show that just had Nick Fury and not even Rhodey.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it should have been like a Disney Plus crossover. Like, I think you should have put like your Kate Bishop, your Hawkeye.
It could have even been like Werewolf by Night length. It could have even just been something, just like, oh, let's have like all the new characters meet each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would have taken the weight off of when Avengers 5 comes out and you're having so many characters meet each other for the first time.
And they said that when Endgame came out, they said the next crossover will be smaller. And we're hearing Secret Wars now. Yeah. So it's like, where's the small crossover you guys were talking about 5 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Connor has definitely echoed this idea that like Avengers 5 should be small and then Secret Wars.
It should be Age of Ultron like.
Yeah. And you know, I think like at the time I was like, no, I don't think I agree. And now the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, I think Connor's right. I do think it should be a smaller thing.
Yeah, like Age of Ultron, then you go into your Infinity War sort of thing.
Yeah. But we have one more kind of news story here. I know we're kind of already like running a bit long, but I'm having a blast here. Right. Giancarlo Esposito will play an original character in an upcoming MCU project. Now, this came out a couple of days ago.
Gustavo Fring in Avengers Secret Wars.
That's what I said.
Didn't hear that it was original. Does that mean like a Coulson type of character?
That's
not
what
like,
it seems. I think a lot
Coulson,
of people are
like
in the official article it came out. It did say unoriginal character. I think a lot of people just aren't seeing that, which makes sense why articles and like things wouldn't want you to see that part, because it's like everyone's like Galactus and Doom and Kang, so it makes sense why they're trying to like not include that in a lot of the articles. But they did say
like
people have fun with it.
Yeah.
Like a TV agent is kind of like a Mobius or a Coulson.
Yes. Yeah.
Imagine he was just the new king.
Oh,
that'd be crazy.
Honestly, he's probably not going to be a villain though, because he's vocalized that like he's. Like, I'm so tired of him playing villains. Like I didn't like him in The Boys, not because he was bad, but because I was like I'm watching so much of your content that like this is taking me out of it.
He feels like the same character in a lot of the things he plays, and it
sucks
because like he is good in everything. Like he basically is Fring in most of the things that I watch, and I hate it because I do love Fring. Like he could play Fring forever, and I'd be like, all right.
He was really good in the Get Down. Like he played the father of the love interest, and like that. There, he was an adversary, but he was also still very soulful and like had good intentions.
Yeah,
he has a new TV show that ended last week called Parish, where he's like this getaway driver kind of character, for heists and stuff like that. But it's about more so that he's trying to get out of the life and he's being dragged back in, and he's pretty good. And it's like a more sort of between take where he's not fully evil, but he's not really a good guy either. Which it's a cool sort of dynamic for him to play.
I think the first thing I ever saw him in, and Connor's not going to get this reference, and that's fine. But like back when Once Upon a Time was on, he played a really weird character in that show. Like he played like the Magic Mirror, and it's such a different... Yeah, he plays the magic. Wow. He plays like a genie / magic mirror, and it's such an interesting character for him because he's just basically a simp. Like he's just like simping for the evil queen the entire show.
Is it him, or is he playing like? Is he doing a voice of something?
No, it's basically his voice. It's basically his voice, and like I
think his face isn't on screen. Like he's like the voice of the mirror.
Oh no! He's like an actual character throughout.
Okay.
Yeah, like he gets out of the mirror in later points, but like it's such an interesting character because like he is still technically a villain. But it's such a different type of villain than he normally... Like, he's like the henchman character, which I feel like he's normally like the big boss of like a CEO or whatever. But no, where are we kind of seeing him within the MCU? And we got a lot of upcoming projects that we're getting. Where do we kind of see him fitting in, and like what role do we think he's going to play?
I mean, to be completely honest, I'm not getting my hopes up for any of them because the MCU non-stop wastes its big actors like Ethan Hawke in
Bill
Moon
Murray.
Knight. Yeah. Bill Murray.
I'm getting a lot of likes on a tweet right now. The way Marvel underutilized Marissa Tomei and Jennifer Connelly needs to be studied.
Yeah.
They underuse so many of them. And I think it's going to be the same here, unfortunately. I think like it's always unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I was even saying like I almost don't want it to be like because I kind of want him to be a hero. Like, I think it'd be really cool if you could give him like a superhero. Because I agree. I do think he's been very vocal about he wants to not do as many villains. He wants to be a main character. I know a lot of people over the years have said like maybe a Charles Xavier. Obviously, that's not an original character that wouldn't fit here, but that's always been one. I was like, I'd be okay with that kind of role. I'm just trying to look at like the upcoming slate.
I wouldn't mind if he was in Daredevil, like as a judge or as some sort of like good character. Good, like there's always an everyman character in every season of Daredevil, and maybe like I would be open to him being the new everyman. We still don't know who the everyman archetype. Like I think first season was Ben Urich, second season was Frank, the third season is Ray, and I don't know. Like I just still don't know how if they're still doing that type of thing with the season of Daredevil. They'll even have like a supporting character that is like.
What if he's
supposed to represent the themes?
What if he's like the mayor that's running against Fisk?
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, that'd be cool, actually. Oh, actually getting those two actors back and forth would be terrific.
That'd be really good.
Like
he's the good one this time?
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
I love that.
I'd be down for that. In my head, I'm also kind of thinking like Fantastic Four. Like I'm thinking like that's really, I didn't start filming yet, but
in
the
like 60s would be cool.
Yeah.
Like him in like a 60s sort of area.
I agree. And also like if the rumors are true that Fantastic Four is taking place in another Earth, then we would need a lot of these new kind of like supporting characters. Like I assume we're going to get to explore the world. Maybe he's like the president of their Earth or something.
Oh,
maybe he's like the mayor of their town or whatever.
60s variant Nick Fury.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be fun.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool too.
I always like have to take this all with a grain of salt because I know it says original character in the article, but like sometimes these news outlets they misinterpret what they hear.
Yeah, or they
so
get a wrong name.
It could also be original character as in someone who just hasn't been adapted yet.
Sure.
I just am like hedging my bets here.
Yeah.
Sure.
It could also be like sometimes they get different names so that they don't spoil it. They'll like Marvel's representative will tell whoever's reporting this that it's this character, but it's not actually.
Right. I mean, if he was playing like a comic book character, would there be one that would be open to him playing?
Well, he said Professor X, right? He said that, didn't he?
He said, like he's. I mean, that's been a rumor for a while.
He didn't want to be in a wheelchair, wasn't that what he said? He was like he didn't want to play the character if he was in a wheelchair all the time.
And then it's like, well, then maybe you don't want to be.
Professor. Like then maybe you shouldn't play Professor X.
Yeah.
I mean, like even like a Magneto, people have said throughout the years, and that's been like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but then that takes away a little bit of the comic origins and stuff, and then there goes to the villain thing, and that's the thing. Like, there's so many villains that like I've heard, like I would have loved if he could have played like Lex Luthor again because I know he would have freaking killed it. But then it's like that's just Fring again, kind of like the rich billionaire guy. I've heard people say like a Norman Osborn. He would kill as Norman Osborn. But then that's the kind of the billionaire rich villain. Like it's just kind of the same thing again. So I don't know. I can't think of like many heroes I could see him
I'd
as, but
like an older hero. Like
I could see him being like a Kevin Costner type, like in Man of Steel. Like he could be someone's like soulful mentor.
yeah,
that'd be cool.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't like what major heroes is the MCU not adopted yet? Like they're doing the X-Men, they're doing Fantastic Four, Squirrel Girl. No, they were going. Remember they were going to do the Squirrel Girl TV show. They got canceled.
They filmed the pilot.
Oh yeah, that's what
I wanna watch
like
that.
AT&T girl, right?
Huh?
The
Yeah.
I feel bad for her.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I'll be very curious though. Like this is again a story that will probably come back around when we actually hear who they are, or maybe even when we're in the theater being like, oh, it's freaking Spider-Man. I don't know. Like we'll have a moment where like, oh, it's him.
I'm honestly expecting a Coulson clone, like just another type of that guy.
I could see
or
that.
You know what I could also do? It could be like an animated role. If it's like in a what if. We have that like Black Panther prequel show coming out. Like, what if it's like a Black Panther?
Oh my gosh, he could totally be in the live action Wakanda show as well.
Yeah, if that's still happening, I'm not sure if that's still coming out, but well, we'll definitely see. But yeah, okay, we're gonna be jumping into the main topic. I'm really sorry it's taking this so long, but we've just been having so much fun with this news.
Man, good discussions.
I know. We'll hopefully not take too long on these ones, but we're talking about some of our favorite fictional characters. I asked both of you, or actually Connor asked you to pick out 4 favorite fictional characters. We're going to be going through one by one, talking about them. Do you guys like TV characters?
Is that Negan on the front?
I prefer TV to most forms of media because I grew up on comics, long form storytelling. It's just you get to spend more time with them, and you get really attached.
More development for all the characters.
I agree. Almost in any case, I'm always just like I think most stories can be told better in a TV show than a movie most times. Like there's very few stories I think let's stick to 2 hours over like 8 to 22 hours or whatever.
Like I prefer my Breaking Bad in 2 hours, please.
Yeah,
that would have been crazy. Episodes. Can you imagine? Just like 5 movies instead of like freaking 50.
Well, it's funny. Like if you think of Andor, you could view Andor like 3 movies and a finale.
You could, yeah. It's like a trilogy. Yeah,
it's a weird way to look at it.
Yeah, man, Andor's so good, so good.
All right, we're gonna get started here with our first one. Dino, this is your first pick here, right?
Yep, Ben Urich. I'll keep these short. I wrote a little bit of notes for each of my characters. He drops bars all the time. He's just constantly dropping bars. He's the everyman of the season. As I said earlier, he much like Alfred and Batman. Like I believe he's the one we're looking at this all through. As well as Karen and as well as Foggy, but I think he's the main one that is telling us exactly what's going on. He's wise and he's careful. He's seasoned. One of my favorite films of all time is Spotlight, and Spotlight was from 2015, and it's about investigative journalism and taking down the controversies within the Catholic Church. And I just love seeing characters like this, and I think the fact that this gets represented not just in this season, throughout the whole show, but specifically this season with him, I think that it's just a joy to watch, really. And he's the everyman, right? Like I keep saying, there's these supporting characters are so important to me, and sometimes when I think back at Daredevil season 1, when I haven't seen it in a while, I forget about Ben, and then I'll watch the show, I'll be like, oh yeah, no, if he wasn't in that season, maybe the season would be exactly the same for a lot of people. But I think it's it would be missing a lot for me personally.
No, I completely agree. Without Ben, there's a giant hole in this first season of the show. He fills in a lot of those pieces. He's the character that really does be the driving force behind certain story points, behind certain plot elements. And sure, you could have other characters fill the spot that he fills, but I think just the way the actor also brings what the actor brings to the performance for his character informs so much about the tone of season 1 of the show. And I think that the whole element of the newspaper reporter sort of stuff in season 1 is what kind of sets Daredevil immediately apart from Jessica Jones, from Luke Cage, from Iron Fist.
Or even the Arrowverse shows. I mean, Karen and him have their subplot, and it feels significantly better as a supporting character than other supporting characters we've gotten. Do you guys find it fascinating how the decision was made to kill him off? Do you guys know about that?
I did hear about it at one point.
It was like Marvel, head on high, head up high in the company. They suggested to kill him off because they were like, it's just gonna be. They wanted the audience to have a reason to like really hate Kingpin because they felt at the time Kingpin was so likable that they needed something like that. And it's fascinating to me because I do think Ben Urich has a lot of staying power. Yeah. And imagine if he showed up in like a Spider-Man movie or anything like that. Like when I had heard that Daredevil was being rebooted with the same actors, I always said like bring Ben Urich back.
Yeah.
But they're not doing that, and that's fine.
Yeah. There's is it Ben's daughter who's going to be in Born Again?
Which is funny to me because they've already built up Karen as the reporter now, so I just think that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I need, like we've been kind of planning on like doing a rewatch soon of all of these shows. So it's been a while for me since I've seen the first season of Daredevil, but I think what always kind of did stand out to me like was its like supporting characters, and I think that is like you were saying, what really makes the show stand out. Like I think, and kind of like what the Arrowverse I actually think do pretty well as well is like they make us care about the people in their lives. Like they aren't just like, oh, I'm a superhero and that's kind of my personality. Like Matt and all the characters around Matt have so many different things going on in their lives.
There's so much backlash against, when people were hearing Foggy and Karen were coming back. Yeah. It was very significant.
It's so real. Like it feels like you're watching someone else's life. Like you're just kind of viewing what's going on with them. So I definitely think a character like this is always very fascinating. And I'm excited to kind of revisit the show because I'm like, I remember this character, but I don't remember much of the character. So I'm really excited to like revisit the character.
Sure.
Fun stuff. All right, Connor, your next pick here, or your first pick here. I'm so sorry. Look at that! It's a Mr.
Oh, cool.
It's
Mr. Queen.
Superman is my favorite fictional character of all time, but Oliver Queen is Oliver Queen from Arrow is pretty easily my favorite TV character of all time. Like I think it's mainly because Arrow is just, like before Arrow, I'd watched Smallville, but I never really watched Smallville live. Smallville was always a case of like, I'd be watching episodes 2 years after they aired. Kind of when it came, like I'd be watching, season 6 episodes of Smallville while season 10 was airing for the first time and not really knowing anything, just kind of random episodes here or there. It wasn't until much later that I finally watched all of Smallville through. But then besides that, there was also like Star Trek I was really into. But Arrow was kind of the first live show that I was into from start to finish. The first show that I was like there at the very beginning and was with the whole way through. And it was kind
of those Wednesday nights.
It was like 3 a.m. the episodes would come out in Ireland. So I'd have school the next day and I would get up at 4 a.m. before school every time there was a new Arrow episode, and I'd watch Arrow before school and then go into school and like want to die because I'd be so tired. But it was just so great just having Arrow as like that beginning of the morning sort of thing for 8 years straight, almost like even going into college when season 8 was coming out when I was in college, and it was like waking up early and having those episodes there was such a great start to the day. It was like just this show that like I know a lot of people have their problems with the show, and sure, I'm not going to sit here and defend season 4 and stuff like that, but I think just Arrow is easily the most consistent Arrowverse show we've had. I think it has peaks that are much higher than even Flash has had. I think that the show is something else, and I love Oliver Queen's development through the whole show. Like you start with him, getting on the island. You see sort of these flashbacks throughout season 1 to him before the island. Like you see the episode where they I think it's season 1 episode 20 when they flash back to before the Queen's Gambit goes out and gets blown up by Malcolm Merlin's hidden bomb and all stuff like that. And like you see how Oliver acts in this and how Stephen Amell plays him, and it's such a different character. Like you see him kissing Laurel goodbye at his room or whatever. She shows up to give him a kiss goodbye before the boat. He rings Sarah and is like, yeah, you're gonna want to drive around a little bit because your sister just showed up. It's like it's such a different kind of character, and the way he plays that going on. Like then season 2 episode 20, you've got the flashbacks to when he found out that that he might have a child, and then when Moira tells him that, you know, he's not going to have the child or whatever, or, you know, he hears that
she's handled it.
Yeah, that she's handled it. And like, you just kind of see the way Steven sort of plays that off, where he like, it's the first hint for chronologically of Oliver like not being the worst guy on the planet anymore. Like he almost had real responsibility there, and he doesn't have it anymore, and he's a little bit disappointed he's not going to have responsibility, and he's not going to have that child.
Oh, it's so fascinating.
It's great, honestly. Like I the Arvors gets a lot of flack from, I think, a lot of different people, a lot of different areas, but I just think, you know, when you really look at those character moments, I think it's where the shows shine through so much. And I think it's nothing clearer than with Oliver Queen.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they had the opportunity that very, very few superhero projects have ever had, where it's like, hey, here's like 23 episodes for like 8 seasons straight, and it's like, whoa, like you actually have time to spend time with these characters. Who are they? You know, where, and I think that a lot of them lose that as, you know, the later the shows go, but like, you get to learn who their friends are and how they like the way how they make their coffee and how they wake up in the morning. You see them to go parties and, you know, get-togethers and Christmases and Valentine's Day. Like a lot of shows nowadays, not to hate current TV because there's a lot of benefits to that, not having the 22 episodes or whatever, but you do miss a lot of the opportunities to do like Christmas specials and the, you know, like Halloween, whatever,
seasonal stuff,
crossover. Yeah, no, 100%. I think that really helps us. It helps us getting able to just spend time with Oliver for 150 episodes that you.
I think the best compliment, compliment I can give Arrow in the first 2 seasons specifically, and by the way, my favorite season of Arrow is season 5. Mm-hmm. The best compliment I can give about when the era started of the Arrowverse was that each episode felt like a mini superhero movie. And like that's how I felt about it when I watched it. I don't know if I'd feel the same way if I watched it now. Like I was 13 or 14 when Arrow season 1 came out, and I grew up with it as well. I stopped watching Arrow strictly after season 5 because it was season 5 to me was so good that it was safer for me to just put it down and then just watch every crossover. I watched all of season 8, however. I've heard a lot of great things about 6 and 7. I may, in fact, watch those seasons someday. But yeah, Oliver is such a tricky one to reconcile with for me personally, because I obviously love what Stephen Amell did. But like, I'm a very big fan of Black Canary. And we don't need to get into it.
I can already like, yep.
I always feel like this is the CW, and we are catering to a female audience. Yeah. I think that it's so strange to me how you didn't bill this as a Green Arrow and Black Canary show. That'll always be the strangest thing to me. And I know that Mark Guggenheim and the other people in the writers' room, they obviously regret the way things went, because they gave us like 3 canaries after season 4 because they knew what they did was stupid and wrong. And it's like, I really loved Felicity in season 2. We don't have to get into this. I'm sorry. I really loved season 1 and 2 Felicity. And that's where,
all day, so you can
that's where I'll leave it at. Like, I love season 1 and season 2 Felicity so much, but I really feel like Laurel was the future. And that's all I'm going to say.
They were setting her up as the future. Like, it was pretty clear in season 3 that, you know, they were going to go with the comic book route for her character.
Yeah. And they kind of did still. Like, if you know the Black Canary lore in the comics, her coming from another Earth is actually, like, fine on paper. It's just not what anyone wanted. People wanted something more organic. You know, the lore from Earth 1.
I will say, season 6 and 7, in what they do with Earth 2 Laurel, does feel like they are trying to redeem a lot of... Yeah, she's great. It feels like they're trying to redeem a lot of what they did with the original Laurel. Like,
I should watch that. I should watch those seasons.
I also think season 8 does such a good job with it, too, because that feels to me... I haven't read much Green Arrow comics, but that feels like, there's such a focus on, like, Oliver, Laurel, and, like, Diggle. And it's, like, that trio of characters just, like, doing stuff. And it's like, that feels like what we've been kind of wanting for a couple years now since start. Like,
I kind of felt like Felicity was a bit of a Chloe Sullivan 2.0.
Absolutely, yeah. Although they saw it with success when she wasn't Smallville, and they wanted it for her.
I love both those characters, to be honest with you, but I think that they also have some bad juju in multiple different ways.
I think it's unfortunately those characters become a crutch, where it's like it's easy for writers to fall into that pit of going, Just say that they hacked into the wherever the hero's going, and then it's like every episode there's 12 lines about how they've hacked into the building, they've opened the door, they've hacked into the drone to stop it from blowing up the city or whatever.
I'm so glad you're saying this, because this ties into one of my other characters I picked. I got to ask you something about Stephen Amell. Do you think he should have had the goatee? And do you think he could have pulled off the goatee?
I think he has the most facial hair in season 8, and I think it's his best look. So I would say yes. I think he should have. He should have. It was him who was like he wasn't ever doing it, right? I think he.
That's my only real issue with Stephen Amell.
Yeah.
I think he's great. I loved seeing him as the mayor. That was so cool. I know a lot of people thought the politics wasn't like that well done, but I thought I appreciated it. I appreciated that they went for it. You know,
they tried it.
I liked it. I liked it all but the gun episode. Like I didn't think.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking
he's
that.
in the hospital and he's like standing between the two gun characters. That's so it's very in your face, and it came at a weird time, and it's like, you know, Team Arrow has, you know, Wild Dog running around with 2 pistols in their hand every episode, and you've got
very
Team
strange.
Arrow, warranting for no gun use. I don't know. Diggle's got a gun every other episode as well. So.
Yeah.
He has an arrow, which is not that far off from a gun, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I know this is a silly thing to say, but I feel like getting killed by an arrow versus getting killed by a gun, I imagine one is much more painful and horrifying.
Yeah.
You're going to feel that arrow like going like into where it's killing you, whereas the bullets...
You leave it in. You can't pull that out.
Yeah.
Not without a doctor.
It's that Arrow does. It's so weird because sometimes it's genuinely some of the best comic book TV you'll ever see, and other times they're making decisions that you're like, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
Remember Huntress?
Yeah.
A great character. Yeah.
Where did she go?
Disappears after season 2.
I thought we were getting her back for sure. Like, what was it, season 6, where like they were kind of like tying things.
They kept name dropping Frank.
Yeah, was she coming in? Like, maybe we got a lot of new Team Arrow people.
Oh, the Bertinellis.
Yeah, they were name dropping the Bertinellis all the time, and then they had a character that had like stolen her mask as well at one point.
Yeah, like season 6, there was like 4 name drops of their family. I was like, okay, she has to be coming in. I was like, oh nope, I guess not.
He's gone.
Yeah, moving on. My first one, and you know, again, like I tried to do characters I didn't name the first time I did this. I was like, let's have fun. What other fictional characters do I love? I got Hugo Reyes from Lost, man. Like I binged Lost last year. I didn't binge it, but I went through Lost last year, and it was like such a joyous character. And like Hugo is just one of those characters that like every time they appear on screen, I'm just so unbelievably happy. Like he is just kind of that one character that's just enjoying life to the fullest. And like as you kind of go through the show, he to me is like the heart and soul of it all. Like, you know, I think season 1, it's a lot about like, who is this guy and like what is he up to? And you know, not to spoil the show for anyone who I know it's been like freaking 30 years by this point, so I feel like I could probably spoil it. But like when we get into like his curse stuff and like who he is as a character, and we find out like his like hallucination stuff, and he becomes a character where you're not quite sure what's real and not real with him, but like he's just one of those characters you just love to watch and you love to hang around. And I think he's one of those actors where also like anything else he's in, I'm so happy because it's like, oh, it's Hugo's here, and I'm so excited whenever I see him and things. And I honestly could not imagine Lost without him. Like I think if you take him out, it's probably still a good show, but I think so much of like the heart and the soul and kind of like what makes the show and this kind of like found family part that I think they do so well kind of does lean very hard on Hugo. And he's just a guy that's like, yeah, I'll treat everyone with like such like respect and honesty, and anyone's like a friend. And I think he's just kind of that character that you want to be your friend, I think. So I was always been a huge fan of Hugo. Connor, you've seen Lost, right? Do you have any?
I have seen Lost.
Hugo?
Lost is one of those shows that was like, I didn't watch it too long after. I didn't watch it too long after Arrow, but like in contrast with Arrow, I rewatched it 70 times since it first came out. Whereas with Lost, I've seen it once, and it was around the time when Arrow first came out. I mean, I remember really liking the show. I remember when I was watching it, like Lost. I think Lost and Breaking Bad were the two kind of first real sort of shows I watched that you hear are the greatest shows of all time.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like in that sort of echelon of shows, and I really liked it. But it also means that because it was so long ago,
Yeah.
a lot of the characters I don't remember I remember them. I remember their names.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they did in seasons. I don't remember where they were. I don't know a single line. I don't remember a single line of dialogue they said. Like I remember Desmond. I remember
So good.
Jack. I remember Shepard. I remember what his name. Jack and Shepard are the same characters.
Yeah,
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
No,
I remember
that's
all these
fair.
characters, but I don't remember much about them or not. But I do remember really liking Hugo.
I will say this about ABC shows. I think that a lot of people in the last 15 years have given a lot of crap to the network TV shows and network formats. But the like people forget like the Marvel Netflix shows were produced by ABC.
Yeah,
ABC made Lost. ABC made Castle. I love Castle. Like ABC is so underrated.
Yeah,
They're stupidly underrated when it comes to network TV.
Yeah, some of my favorite shows, like Lost, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Once Upon a Time. Like,
Agents of
those are
S.H.I.E.L.D.
some of my all-time favorites, yeah. I will just say, like, you know, I don't have to keep on this too long, but, like, probably one of my favorite episodes in, like, ever. Like I think it's just one of my favorite, like, TV episodes of all time. It's just, it's an episode about, it's a filler. And like, when I think about filler episodes, this is the first one I end up thinking of nowadays. But it's, like, the episode basically is about Hugo and, like, one of the other characters finding a van, finding gas to put in the van and fixing up the van and like riding it down a hill. Like it's so unlike any other character, unlike any other episode from Lost. Like most people be like, why is this an episode? But it's easily my favorite episode from the show because Hugo is like so dedicated to finding like remnants of the real world again and finding some real life connection, and that's the episode. And he's so wholesome. And there's a scene where they're driving down the hill and like Hurley's laughing his ass, like he's like laughing his butt off as he's going down the hill, and it's the most wholesome thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I love Hugo. Hurley, great character. All right, next up, going into our number twos. Oh boy, it's Daisy Johnson.
Yeah. I love Daisy Johnson. I mean, you were just talking about the supporting character who's hacking into things and like being kind of like the MacGuffin type of character, like easily like moving the plot forward with stuff like that. I will be honest, like going back to Arrow, even Arrow season 2 was on the same time as We Met Sky, and I remember a lot of people felt at the time Arrow season 2 is the real superhero show. And what even is this police procedural that we're watching with Marvel?
Police procedural for
and I think the magic is that they pulled the rug out from underneath of us, and this character who she was a conspiracy theorist who's a hacker who is saying like, oh, the evil SHIELD government guys. She ends up being right in the end about that, and I think that she does have a little bit of like the chosen one type of archetype. Yeah. I remember feeling like she was just a Buffy clone in the first like half of season 1.
It does feel a little bit like it, yeah.
And I was like, she's quipping a bit too much. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then over time, she's learning how to do hand-to-hand combat. You know, for 32 episodes, she doesn't have superpowers. And I think that this is something. This is what made me pick her as one of my favorites, because how often do you get it? And I know the Arrowverse actually did do this a little bit often, but how often do you get a character that you get to spend time with them? They get to be the one that you're looking through their eyes at these other superpowered individuals, heroes or villains. You get to spend so much time with them. And then after so many hours, you get to see them become not only like skilled hand-to-hand combat, doing like John Wick type combat with the guns, but then she also gets superpowers. And she's a hacker, and she has the quips. That's insane to me. Like, and I think she's a little bit of like the X-Men that we never had during the Marvel Studios like type of run. I know a lot of people aren't that big on the Inhuman stuff, and like maybe they didn't explore that enough with her, and maybe sometimes they kind of beat us over the head with it, how much she cared about the other Inhumans. But like, I always appreciated it. Like, I thought it was fulfilling something that we weren't really getting from Marvel Studios.
Yeah. Yep. Completely agree. No, I think I'm like the way that they approach her character thread the seasons is kind of amazing. And like I don't blame the character of Sky for a lot of the season 1 parts of the show, because I think everyone was affected by how season 1 was. Like I don't think season 1's a bad season. I think revisiting it's
aged really well.
Yeah,
I think.
They put a lot of little hints in there for what's actually happening, and they just have to drag it out because they can't do anything till Winter Soldier comes out. And I think it's unfortunately on a first watch, it makes every character look like they're in these generic roles that a normal ensemble in this genre would have. Like I don't know, like Coulson in Agents of Shield's early episodes, it feels like your usual sort of government character who's at the front of this new task force that's been established. Grant Ward feels like the usual action hero character. Sky feels like the hacker. Like they all fit into these archetypes.
It's funny because if you were fans of Whedon's shows, the Buffy character archetypes are: Buffy is the chosen one, Willow's the hacker, Xander is the comedic relief male character, male insert character, and then Giles is the mentor. So then you look at Flash. Tom Cavanaugh was the mentor. Supergirl, Martian Manhunter was the mentor, and then you can find those 4 archetypes within all these shows. And then you usually have like a love interest too, is like really dynamic. And with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it was the only one that was literally a Whedon show that actually like really evolved what was possible. Like Fitzsimmons are obviously kind of Willow and Xander-esque. They're Cisco and Caitlin-esque. But they're like so much more than that. And like Coulson is not just the mentor character. He's also the main character. And then you have Sky, who's like, she's also a little bit of Willow and also a little bit of Buffy, but then she's also a main character. Like they all feel so like important and they stand on their own. And like even Agent May, like I don't even know what category to place Agent May. Like, but I know I'm just talking about all the other characters now, but obviously like Daisy, she is just remarkable character. The fact that she's so overpowered as well is kind of crazy as well.
Oh, and
she can do anything.
She's on the level of most Avengers.
You take her powers away, and she's still stupidly competent.
Yeah.
She was the destroyer of worlds. Like not many Marvel characters were that.
And I also think they do such a great job at like writing such a powerful character. Like how she's put in next to mostly like these just secret agents who where they're most of the time they're just they have their fighting or whatever, and how like it never, most of the time it doesn't feel like they're dumbing her down, like dumbing the powers down. Like they find interesting ways to write around the powers. Like not to go back to the Flash, but like every 2 seasons they would get rid of Barry's powers for like 3 episodes. It's like all right, whatever, right?
Powers this week.
But also a lot of supporting characters became heroes in the Arrowverse, and I thought that was something a lot of people didn't like. Whereas Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like, they could have made Fitz have powers. They could have made Simmons have powers. They could have done that. But Daisy was specifically, like, we spent 32 episodes with her, and when she gets the powers, it is, like, one of the coolest, like, ideas to me, and executed in such a special way. Like, it feels like someone getting superpowers and, like, becoming a superhero. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I think it's also special for like, I didn't know who Daisy Johnson was before all of that happened. Like comic book readers would be like, Daisy Johnson usually has power, so maybe.
Yes.
Like... For me, it's like she's just like.
Yeah.
Girl, so seeing like or like being a main part of story, like seeing that journey is really, really special.
Sure.
I will say that even though I've like spoken negatively on some of the quippier aspects, the thing I appreciated about after season 1 was that they never lost that spirit. Like even though they made things more serious. To it. Yeah, like remember in season 2 she calls like Raina Sonic the Hedgehog because she has the spikes coming out of her head. She has a lot of great lines.
But like not to rag on the Arborist too much, but like take Fitz for example. Fitz goes through the insane brain damage in season 2. He's got the psychotic split after season 4. If Arrowverse Fitz goes through the brain damage in season 2 or the split in season 4, that gives him superpowers. It doesn't lead to the insane character development that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gives him.
Yeah.
That's
speaking to that. I'm glad you mentioned that because actually Daisy has the speech that encapsulates the whole show. At the end of season 5, she says to Talbot, she's like, talking about how the people like us, we put ourselves on the front line to lose like our limbs and our minds for what's right. And I think that's like the spirit of the show, is that it's about people on the front line of supernatural or fantastical or intergalactic conflict, regular people, and like what that does to them. And I appreciated how the show ended on a Zoom call because it felt like a therapy session. I always felt like, I remember years before we got season 7, I thought to myself, the show will end on a giant therapy session. And I was right about that because like that is what it is. They're a bunch of veterans of this frontline conflict. And most of them are regular people. I know some of them have robot hands and super speed and earthquake abilities, but like they are just like regular frontline conflict resolvers,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like we could sit here and talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. all day. Like I think all three of us love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but no, you're right. Like I think I think what does make the show so special is like you're right, they are just kind of people, and we get to see like the POV of the MCU through such an interesting lens where they're just they're not gods, they're not billionaires, they're just people trying to do the right thing.
It's like how do 5 people take on one superpowered person was like a lot of what season 1 was about.
Yeah.
And it morphed. I think the best part about it is that it kept morphing into a different thing.
Yeah. So good.
Indeed.
So good. All right, our next one. Connor, we're back.
Oh boy.
Walking Dead back. Challenge here is, can you talk about Rick Grimes without spoiling what happens? That's the biggest challenge here, I guess.
I absolutely
All right,
can.
go for it.
So the character is in episode. So I'm just going to say nothing because. What's that? No. Rick Grimes. Like I've been forever saying, The Walking Dead in general. Like it's insane the stuff that it makes its characters go through, considering how short a time span the seasons are. Like seasons 1 through 8 is 2.5 years total, and the fact that Rick changes from, people call him officer friendly because that's what one of the characters called him in season 1, and it's like he goes from that to just this murderous, insane, ravageous beast by not even that far into the apocalypse. And I think that the one thing The Walking Dead absolutely nails is its ability to really showcase how much the apocalypse can change a character and how much it pushes them. Now, I think the later seasons lose this a little bit, but I think the way it approaches Rick Grimes especially is the one shows, like the show's true strength is how it deals with that. And I think it's I don't know, it's like Rick Grimes is kind of similar to Oliver Queen, I guess, in terms of like the development and all the stuff the two characters go through, and like in the changes throughout seasons. And I don't know, I'm like stumbling over my words here. I'm trying I was trying to I don't know, eloquently say why I think the changes are great and why the development's really good, but I'm just running into a wall here in my head. But I think Rick Grimes is a great character that is easily the strong point of The Walking Dead as a franchise. Like I think the franchise has other really great characters, but it doesn't get better than him. I think the development he goes through is one of the true highlights of that entire franchise, of entire TV characters. Like I'd put Rick Grimes above most other TV characters and have him on this list. So obviously,
and I mean, you're definitely not the only one. Like for years, even prior to watching the show, I've heard people say that like Rick Grimes is one of the best television characters of all time, and I think obviously he got a whole show, but I do think at this point I am mostly caught up to what most people saw of Rick Grimes for a long time. Yeah. Outside
of Won't You Live didn't get too many viewers, so like a lot of people didn't come back for it.
Yeah, no, I feel like I have the forefront of what a lot of people saw, and I think my biggest takeaway, and we talked about this on here as I was kind of going through them, but I think what's so interesting is like, I'm not trying to go back to the Arrowverse stuff. I'm not going to do it. But like sometimes in a lot of shows, like characters will have arcs, and then a couple seasons in, they run out of things to do, and they run out of steam. Where it's like, okay, where can we take your character now? Where Rick, every season, even if he's going through similar things and he's having similar ideas and struggles, it never feels like he's in the same place twice. Like it always feels like he's moving, he's evolving. you know, even when it's a similar situation, he's handling that situation, or he's finding new angles to go through these situations. That is so fascinating. And like I've said, like Rick Grimes isn't always my like favorite character on the show, not because he's bad or whatever. I just think there's other characters that I prefer watching over him, but I think he's easily the best written character. Like he's such a well done character. Like you said, his like evolution from like a small time cop to what happened to him in season 2, like launched him on this incredibly fascinating journey, to where he ultimately, like where I left on him was such like this massive sacrifice or whatever to save his people, and a great character for sure.
I always think of the impact Shane had on him, and how that's
absolutely.
like, you could always, a lot of people like to view it as he becomes like more like Shane over time.
Yeah.
And obviously maybe that's just people like projecting John Bernthal's impact of the show onto Rick, and like not letting Rick be his own thing. But I do think that there's a little bit of something to the idea of like his true nature comes out in the apocalypse, or maybe, or rather like a different nature is born out of the apocalypse. There's the wonderful thing about Walking Dead, it's a cheesy thing to say, it's like, it's not the real monsters aren't the zombies, it's the people, right? And and I think that that's true when it comes to Rick. I think he does what he has to do, but sometimes it is kind of messed up. And, you know, he has a lot of impact in terms of like, even the famous meme of like, when what happens in the prison with Lori, and then he's asking Carl what happened, and like that's a meme, that image. And I'm not trying to like bring that up as like a joke, as in like the actor does such a good job of like creating these powerful moments that they have like staying power in the pop culture. Yeah, like does such a good job with it, and just really wonderfully done.
No, I completely agree, and it's like in the first episodes, Rick is hesitant to kill a walker, and then you cut to like season 8 where he's tricking people so that he can kill them. Like it's such a giant change in the character, but it makes sense. Like you can track exactly where it starts, where it comes from. It doesn't feel out of character. And I think it's like, like the apocalypse slowly gets to him, where it's slowly revealing who he is and what he has inside him that can lead to this sort of this guy that, you know, in another life would be in prison, like that would be, you know, a danger. So I think it's fascinating.
This is a random thing, but have you guys seen the black and white versions of the season 1 and 2?
I have seen season 1. I haven't seen season 2 of that. Yeah,
I just think that's cool. That's a random thought that I had. I own like the first 4 volumes of the book.
Yeah, same.
I just think it's cool that at one point they were really thinking of making it black and white. And imagine the timeline of if the whole show was a black and white show. Like,
I mean, they tried it with season 6 with the premiere. The season 6 premiere was in black and white for everybody.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that. That was really weird to me.
This is so interesting. Anyways.
Yeah. All right, my next pick, and I'll be honest, I don't know if there's any like drastically different characters. I got Pat Dugan, which feels like the anti Rick Grimes, but like I think Pat Dugan might literally be the most wholesome television character I've ever seen. Like, just talking about a character that you just love him. Like,
it's so cool they got him too. Like, he's such a I loved him in like Royal Tenenbaums, and he's been in so many good things. He feels like a bigger actor than like he actually is. He is that big to me. Like, you know.
Yeah.
He feels like character focused, like rather than scale, which I really appreciate from him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think just like talking about a character, I just like being around. I like watching on screen. Like, very few compare to Pat Dugan, and like his words of wisdom every episode. Like, does he always get the most to do? Does he kind of often get thrown in that like that mentor type character? Yeah, sure, but he plays that so unbelievably well. And I think how they, you know, like sometimes there's the issue of like, Stripe is down for like the 8 episodes of the season because we can't afford the suit. It's like, yeah, that's fair. But every scene with Pat Dugan, man, is just always some of my favorite stuff. And like his dynamic with Courtney throughout the seasons are so good. Like at the start of the show, I actually wasn't a huge fan of like the you're not my real dad storyline, but it ended up being one of my favorite versions of that storyline, and how
I love when that happens.
Yeah, like how he shows Courtney what a real father should be, it tugs at my heartstrings so much. My favorite episode of the show is like when her real father, her like biological father, comes into town, and it just shows what a better man, what a better father, what a better
It's such a
role model.
classic TV trope, but they do such a good job of just executing an old trope.
Truly, like there's that scene where he comes in and is like, hey, I know I'm not like your real dad, but if you need to talk about anything, if I can do anything for you, and then they have that hug, it gets me every time. Like, it's such a great scene. And like that was the push for her to be able to get the powers back. It was her way of being able to like fully restore that. And then, you know, you jump to season 3 with like the evil Starman, and like there's that element of like, oh, is Starman going to come in and like replace me as that figure for Courtney and stuff like that? And even she's like, maybe she's my real dad. And there's that well, I think it's like the penultimate episode or whatever, where she's like, you know who's really been there for me? Like, I thought you were my father, but now I'm realizing my father was here the entire time, and has that great speech about Pat. It's like, I love this guy. I love this guy so much. And then, you know, a side note, but like I also just love the Pat and Sportsmaster stuff that they get into. Like, just as we're talking about like character combinations, so good. I would watch that spinoff of just like Pat and Sportsmaster hanging out for 8 episodes straight.
I think that show's better than all the Marvel Disney Plus shows for 2 reasons: good supporting character, better supporting characters, better villains. That's it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I think Stargirl is easily one of the best like superhero shows of all time.
I completely agree.
It's really up there for me.
Stupidly
with, like,
underrated.
Yeah, it's so good. Connor, do you have any thoughts on Pat right before we move on or whatever?
No, I just think he's a fantastic character for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. Like he's there really is, like, I can't think of a single moment throughout the entire 3 seasons that I was hating Pat. Like, I think he's the one character on that show that just never had a bad moment. Like the stuff with Courtney's dad, where her real dad shows up and he follows him out, and he just like talks to him.
Never come back. Yeah.
And the when he's slightly mind controlled at the end of season 1, and like Courtney's fighting for him and stuff like that. Like, it's just it's so well done. You're completely right that it's one of the best versions of that trope, where it makes, because like a lot of times, you know, the trope doesn't really go anywhere. It's just there for the sake of drama. But I feel like with this show, it was there for a reason, and it worked when they needed it to work.
Yeah, like characters got closer because of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So good.
I like to think he is the reason, like the actor himself, because he's been in a lot of stuff over the years. He's Owen Wilson's brother. You know, he's been in a lot of things, and I like to think that the reason we got such good moments with him is because he probably had a big part of like that, put his foot down if something was a bit not right. I think the character always deserved to be treated in a way that was likable in terms of like what his role is.
Yeah.
He's a bit of an underdog, you know?
And he's also like, I love his like role in like the JSA as well. Like, he was always the guy that like, he didn't have powers. He didn't fit in with like the Flash and Hourman and Starman, but like he was like the bravest one of the bunch. Like, even when he didn't have powers, and even in present day, like there's moments where he doesn't have a suit, he doesn't have anything, but he is out on the front line about to give his life when he knows there's like such a slim chance of him making it out of this fight. Like, even the pilot, where he's like, well, Courtney, I'm not letting you go. I gotta go. If I don't come back, like he knows in that fight, he's not going to be brainwave. Like he knows he's not going to survive, but he has to try anyway. It's just such a good character trait. I miss Pat so much. I actually think it's the thing I miss most about Stargirl.
I do hate how Sylvester treats him, though. I think even in the flashbacks for season 2, Sylvester is on power trip and bullshit. And it's like, yeah, like I know it's a joke, but Sylvester is literally dying, and it's like, that's a really shitty thing to say.
Yeah.
Like,
he would have been a great Starman.
He would have, yeah.
Killed it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well. He died, so.
He died.
We don't have to deal with him. Alright, let's move on here.
Doc Cochran.
Oh, hell yeah.
He could have gone so many different directions in terms of picking a Deadwood character, but I think it really had to come down to ethics and morality, because the show is like,
I'll swear in Jim, but he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, and even in terms of like Jane, Calamity Jane, like if you learn about the real history of the town of Deadwood, and the real history of Jane, and the real history of Al Swearingen, or the real history of Seth Bullock, they were even more controversial than what they were like in the show. So when I look at Doc Cochran, I think of like, not to get into spoilers at all, but like there are so many beautiful scenes where he is alone by himself, and he's speaking to God. And he may not even really believe in God, but he's like, how can you put all these people who worship you in such like a terrible circumstance? He has these like beautiful soliloquies of like, of just like questioning things, questioning why things are the way they are. He protects people. He, you know, he advocates for people. His motivations are pure, but then there's also like this other element to him. Like when we first meet him, this isn't a big spoiler because it's the first episode, but like our first impression of him is like seeing a dead body of a guy who was shot in the head, and the guy's still like breathing. He's still alive, kind of, even though he was shot in the head. And he's like all fascinated with it. He's like fascinated with the science of it. And so our impression of him is like he's kind of like a weird sort of like mad scientist kind of guy. But as the show goes on, you figure out that like, oh no, he is like maybe the only one who has their best interest, who has everyone's best interest in mind. And I just think that even though he doesn't have the most screen time, I end up appreciating him the more and more I think about him. I also love the trope of the doctor in the old place, like in Outlander, like that's like a Claire's character. In the show I'm currently watching, Queen of Swords, that like cheesy female Zorro show, there's like also a doctor in the Old West, and he's like an important archetype. It's an important archetype, I think, to have that like in a period piece setting. Like it's an important asset, and if something happens to the doctor, then all of a sudden all the characters will like gather around that character and be like, okay, wait a second, we haven't been appreciating this person very much, we got to protect the doctor. And like I think that it's an underappreciated archetype, and not enough people talk about Westerns in general. And I don't know, there's not much more I have to say on him other than when he is showing his care for others, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, I've been forever saying that Deadwood, in terms of purely dialogue, is, in my opinion, the best written show of all time. I've yet to see another show that has the dialogue so fantastically written, where every single line has some sort of other meaning or has something to it that you kind of, I don't know how many times when I've watched the show a couple of times, I don't know how many times every time I watch I have to rewind the line. And I'm like,
look something up. You know what's amazing about the writing process is that there's no ego involved. I don't know if you've heard about like what the writer's room looked like, but it was it's like David Milch, a showrunner. He's just be hanging out with all the other writers, and they're all writing every line together, and they're all making sure that every line is to the best it can possibly be. And it's like, wow, what a wonderful thing, honestly. Absolutely. Like that, it's just, that's beautiful to me. Like, yeah, Deadwood's amazing.
That era of HBO, it's so depressing to me that like both Deadwood and Rome cancelled around the same time because HBO just couldn't afford it, because those period pieces were just costing them far too much money. So like, because I mean, it's clear that with season 3 and stuff that they were setting up to go in a very interesting direction. I know that the movie kind of only went the only direction it could with a certain character.
Like Brian Cox didn't come back in the movie, and I always think about that because I just watched the show last year. Imagine this, right? Imagine you're me. You just watch all the first 3 seasons, and then you watch the movie the same night as you finish season 3. I was like culture shocked by that. I should have probably waited a couple of months even.
So different.
People, they had like 10, 15 years to watch the Deadwood movie and like really process it for what it was. I'm not saying I didn't like appreciate it. I thought it was a wonderful film, but I also was like, whoa, like this is so weird. I shouldn't have done it this way. Like I should have kept a breathing room between the two things. And I do think that Brian Cox, like his whole thing was probably not worth it in the end. I just had to say that because I appreciated the theater subplot. But anyways, if the show was going on longer, it probably would have been amazing.
Yeah. But like they just like for Doc Cochran, like that some of his earliest stuff is kind of defending the girl against Al and all of that sort of elements, and it's like he's immediately like you talked about, he's set up as just this kind of this kooky sort of weird kind of a doctor, but it's like he's practicing frontier medicine, and he's doing it because he's genuinely interested, but he wants to know the best ways to keep people alive and stuff like that. And his dynamic with the Reverend is so fascinating as well, and
it's the monologue about the Reverend that made me fall in love with his character, I think.
Absolutely. It's I think Deadwood, just when it comes to writing, you can't find any better than its character writing and its dialogue writing. Like, it really is one of the best to ever do it.
It's Shakespearean, but then it's also grimy and gross, but then it's ornate, Victorian.
You feel like you're there. It's like the set and the production design is so dirty and real. Like, everything is so mucky and there's puddles everywhere. And it's crazy.
I could have also picked Ellsworth.
Yeah.
He was another everyman type of character who had good intentions. I think in terms of Deadwood, like, if I had to pick my favorites, it would be the ones like Doc Cochran, like the ones who are in this universe, but they actually like are just wholesome people, despite the horrifying things going on around them.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. I have nothing to add because I haven't seen.
You gotta watch Deadwood.
But I know.
I think that it's a hard mode show. It's a hard mode show. Like, I am watching Hell on Wheels right now. I'm watching The Queen of Swords, and Queen of Swords is like easy Western show. Hell on Wheels is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Deadwood is hard mode. It is hard mode Western. I can really get anybody to watch it.
End of the first episode with Wild Bill and Seth is like, we're like, okay, so this is that kind of Western.
Yeah.
It's great for it.
Yeah, let's move on to our next one here.
Let's do it.
Dope.
Yeah.
This is another Western, right? These are both Western shows?
I could have picked Seth Bullock for Deadwood, and it would have just been Timothy Olyphant twice.
I started Justified because of Deadwood. Because
same.
Like, Timothy is so good as Seth in this. I need to watch Justified. And so I watched Justified, and I somehow like Justified a little bit more. I think Justified has this cool factor to it that is unbelievably fun to watch. And
I'm still on season 3, but I don't care if you guys say any spoilers, by the way.
No, I won't spoil anything. I won't spoil anything. You gotta experience it. But it's Raylan is just one of the funnest to watch characters I've ever seen. Just the dialogue he speaks, the way he just goes about everything. I love how it's almost set up immediately in season 1 that he doesn't take his gun out of his holster unless he plans to shoot it. And so it's like 2 or 3 episodes in, there's kind of this standoff on this road, and it's when he's chasing the dentist character played by Alan Ruck from Succession. And the 2 guys are down at the end of the road, and they're like, "Look, Marshall, we're just going to walk a little bit forward. You don't have to shoot us." And Raylan's like, "Take one more step, I'm going to shoot you." Literally 1 second later, there's already a gunshot through the guy's chest because he saw him slowly move. And it's like, there's no messing around at Raylan Givens. And the way that the show plays it up, there is never any dramatic effect to it. There's never any sort of dragging this out. It's the character, they tell you immediately who the character is and what he's going to do. They tell you immediately he's this gung-ho sort of marshal. He's not going to talk you down or play games with you. It's like, if he gives you a warning, you don't follow that warning, you're going to get shot. I think that I can't think of another show really that does that. Like, I guess, HBO shows kind of play around with that stuff a lot, but in terms of, I guess, sort of non-HBO level shows, I can't think of another show where they don't feel the need to drag out these sort of shootouts and these gun things. Like, it's done. It's like there's no beating around the bush with it, and I really respect that.
It's like very much like police procedural, but then mixed with a Dirty Harry, where it's like he's not messing around. And what is the question that everyone asks him in season 1, like about the Miami shooting? Like they're always asking him, like, did you really like shoot that guy? Like sitting at the table, did you give him a minute? Like, he gives him the motive or the ultimatum. He's like, did you really give him 24 hours to leave the town? And it's just fascinating to think about how that echoes for so many episodes and so many. I don't know how far that one event echoes through the future seasons. I'm sure the new events take place that become new things. But I always love that was something that kept following him around. Was like, did you really do this, dude? Did you really give this guy 24 hours to leave town, and then you shot him like at a table in a restaurant in Miami? And it is an idea that how much is it that he views himself as the law, how much of it is his anger issues, or how much of it him being actually more competent than the other people around him.
Yeah.
And it's like a weird conversation.
Like when Nona says to him in the very first episode, like, "You're the angriest person I know."
Yeah.
Like, it already sets off what Raylan is like. It's kind of the thing where Raylan thinks of himself as this sort of cowboy western character in a modern world, and or I guess maybe he doesn't think of himself like that, but to everyone else, he's a cowboy who for some reason thinks it's still, the 1800s, and that he can still go around shooting people and getting in these shootouts all the time.
License to kill.
Yeah, and like giving people 24 hours to get out of town. It's like, who the hell does this marshal think he is? And I love how that's always played up by the kind of the one-off sort of, like I don't know, like gangsters and stuff like that he comes across in episodes early on in the show.
Also, Walton Goggins.
Yeah, Boyd.
He brings it up a lot too.
He really does.
We're the same, you and I.
Raylan's always like, I don't think so. I'm not sure what you mean by that. The Raylan Boyd dynamic is fantastic. But yeah, I won't go on about Raylan too much more, but it's just, I think it's like, I think the sequel show, City Primeval, was great just because Timothy was back as Raylan. So
he's too good.
He's too good.
I'm sad that Santa Clarita Diet never got more seasons. He is a comedy force to be reckoned with, and not enough people know that.
He was really good in that like he played Raylan Givens in an episode of The Good Place, where
oh my god, that was such a weird coincidence for me, because I started Justified at around the same time I got to those episodes of The Good Place. So when he showed up, it would blew my mind. I was like, what in the world is happening?
One of the judges of the afterlife, I forget what her character was. She was like an overseer of the afterlife or something like that. She loves Justified, and so she summons Raylan Givens at some point, and it's Timothy playing Raylan.
That's such a cool crossover idea.
Yeah,
that's great. Was he like an actor in that world, or was it like the actual character?
It's like she summoned the character because she's just kind of overseeing everything.
She can do whatever she wants. She's like basically a god.
That's funny. It's amazing.
I want to watch more Justified. I'm glad that you brought it up because it's motivating me to go back.
Oh, absolutely do. I think season 6 is my favorite. Like, I think it's...
Yeah, I love to hear stuff like that. A lot of people don't like to hear that. They're like, I gotta wait this long. But
really?
The beginning is great. I think, yeah.
How you end it, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's way more important to have a good ending than a good start.
I completely agree.
Like, it sucks for new people to actually have to go through that, but if you can have a good ending, you're...
As long as there's still appealing things before that ending.
Sure.
Yeah. As long as it's not just bad until then.
Yeah. You're just like, I gotta watch all this shit until I get there.
Yeah.
All right, my third one, and this is a show I'm actually very close to the end. I'm actually not done with it, so if something happens with this character within my final 8 episodes, I'm so sorry. I have Walter Bishop from Fringe. I mean, I haven't talked about it much on here, but I've been going through Fringe for the last year and a half, doing like 2 episodes a week for the last while, and truly love the show. And I think Walter Bishop is such clearly like the heart and soul of Fringe. Like, none of it works for me without Walter Bishop. Everything that has happened within the 5 seasons. I don't want to spoil it because I want Connor to watch it someday. Like, it's on my bucket list of things for you to watch because I think you'd love it. I really do.
There's a lot of firsts when it comes to like sci-fi that like even Marvel and DC is doing right now. Like, I don't want to spoil what those concepts are, but like there's a lot of stuff this show did first, quote unquote first, because obviously like comics did a lot of these ideas in the 60s and 70s, but this show did things that like are really mainstays right now.
Oh my gosh, no, it's so incredibly like ahead of its time, and I think it's doing those concepts better than what a lot of Marvel and DC is doing at the moment.
Probably.
And it's so again, I don't want to say it because I don't know if how much Connor knows, but like
I mean, I know it goes multiverse.
Okay, cool.
It goes other versions of the same characters showing up.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, like how they do that is so interesting because like there happens to be like sometimes 5-6 like versions of certain characters, and you care for all of them, and it's like,
Okay.
how do I care for like 3 different versions of Walter Bishop? And somehow I do. But like, what's so interesting, because I was like, because we've recently started season 5 and it's been great, and I'm watching his journey, and I was thinking while I was watching like my latest episode, I was like, I think Walter Bishop might be one of my favorite fictional characters, because what they've done with him is so interesting. Because there is a point within the show where I'm like, I can never forgive you for the actions that I now know that you've committed. Like, how can a character come back from that? And somehow within all of it, knowing what you've done, I still love you, and I want to not hate you right now, because you're just such a wholesome character to watch. And like I said, he's the heart and soul. Like his every episode, him being like, I want a milkshake, I want a steak, like every episode he just has this like new food craving that he wants. And the journey of that episode is him trying to get the freaking jelly beans from the store or Osterstry or whatever it may be. It's so fun to watch. And like his connection with his son, his connection with like Olivia, what he adds to the show. I mean, the actor John Noble, so unbelievably good. Like
he's so good.
He's so good. And like he is this little fun-loving character, but like when he has these like emotional raw moments, it's like, oh my god. Like,
he's a trained actor, and then you get reminded.
Yes, no, fully. You're like, oh, he's just a fun little character. It's like, oh my gosh, the trauma. And like when you kind of see like some of my favorite episodes from the show are like the Backlash episodes, when we get to see like a younger Walter. And like there's a reason why those are some of the best episodes, because like it proves that he is the best character from the show. Again, like if in the final episode he like kills a bunch of orphans or whatever, I'm sorry, I haven't finished it, but
well, you're gonna look.
I know.
I mean, he does. So
dang it. Spoilers.
Do you guys think that like his archetype? I haven't seen all of Fringe, by the way, so forgive me if this is inaccurate. But do you think that his archetype is kind of echoed in like through something like a Harrison Wells and through like what Tom Cavanaugh's character is, where it's like you get to see like so many different versions of the same face sort of thing, and like he's the mentor in the role as well. Like I always like when the Harrison Wells stuff was happening, it reminded me more of Fringe than anything else.
Sure, I can definitely see those parallels. I think the thing that is so interesting is like he is like the old man character, but like he's also like such a child at points.
Yeah, he's
like,
so youthful.
Yeah, and you know, like slight spoilers, Connor. You enter the show where he's like been in an asylum for several years, so he's kind of been away from like humanity for a while. So he's like re-experiencing all of these moments and all of these things throughout his life. So that's why he's like milkshakes and freaking glow sticks and whatever. Like he's so excited about world. And I do think it is interesting, because I sometimes do think he's like, yes, he's the smartest character in the room, but I also think he's like the most unmature character in the room, which makes him so fascinating to watch. Where it's be like, oh yes, I have to do this and this and this and this. Oh, did someone pet my pet cow today? Like it's such an interesting back and forth. And again,
fun.
Like, super fun, yeah. And then once you kind of see what has happened to him and why he's the way he is, you're like, oh, it all makes so much sense now. Like the secrets he's hiding, it makes so much more sense. And then also like contrasted from like alternate versions of him, it's like, oh, that's who he could have been. That's like another version of him that we could have been seen with if things went a different way. So yeah, I mean, like even just now, like the more I'm talking about him, I'm like, oh my gosh, he really is one of my favorite fictional characters. Like such a fun character to watch. Yeah, that's all I have to say. How far did you make on it? Did you get like first season?
I watched the first season.
Okay. I will say I think it gets so much better from there. Like I think the first season's
sets up all the ideas, and then
yes, it's very like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where like it sets up all the characters. And
is that an ABC show or is that a sci-fi show? Where did that come out?
I think Fringe is.
Was it FX? No,
I don't think it's FX. I think it is ABC.
Is it?
If it's another great ABC show, that's mind blowing. Felt like more of like a sci-fi.
It is FX.
Fox.
Yeah.
Okay, it's FX.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, it's a show that I really like Anna Torv.
Yeah, she's great.
I would watch it again, and I love the dude from Mighty Ducks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like season 1 is great. Season 2 gets even better, and then it's like season 3, and then especially season 4 so far. I thought season 4 was like some of the best TV I've seen in like a minute. Like it's really
Cool.
really good. And then I'm on the 5th season, which is very different, but I'm excited to kind of see where it all kind of lands.
Mhm.
All right, let's move on here. This was yours, right? This was
Yeah. Have you guys seen True Detective season 1?
I sure have.
I have not.
Yeah. Rust Cohle is pretty important to me because this came out when I was like in the 11th grade, and I think I was a teenager at the time, and I was more into some edgier content in terms of like, realistic, dark and gritty, and like grounded in storytelling. And like I think over the years, I've like really came to a middle point in terms of like what I like.
Yeah.
But I just adore this character, and again, another one who drops bars all the time. He's very cynical, but in the end, he he's finding almost like a higher purpose, but not necessarily. You know, just like Daisy, he's a conspiracy theorist who kind of ends up being right in the end about everything he's saying. And I like the idea that he brings Woody Harrelson's character more towards where he's at, and Woody Harrelson's character brings him more towards where Woody Harrelson's character is at. And I've always liked the idea that people say, like, you know, usually Woody Harrelson is the crazy guy, and then Matthew McConaughey is the straight man. But then in this show, it's the other way around. And
it is, yeah, it's completely flipped.
I appreciate the scenes where he's older and he's like taking those super long drags of his cigarettes. And I'm not a cigarette smoker, but I love hearing people talk about it. They're like, why does he have to take those long drags? Like, that makes people who want to smoke cigarettes want to smoke cigarettes, apparently. There's a lot of like really tactile like things about his performance that are like, you can feel it. You can really feel like him sitting on his mattress with the looking up at the upside down cross, and he's not even like that. Like he's not even that much of a believer, but he is absorbing ideas. He's absorbing ideologies. He's absorbing the intellectual side of things, so that he can kind of mix them all up into this cocktail that becomes like his worldview. And yeah, there's so many good lines. Like my favorite line of his that's so dark but also so beautiful is when he says all the human race was a mistake. Free will was a mistake. We should all just do the right thing and hold hands and lay down and stop procreating and end ourselves in the most beautiful way, just by holding hands and not procreating and just looking up at the sun and just hanging out. And I was like, that is both like the most sad view, but also like beautiful sort of way of putting it. And I like the speech at the end of the season as well that he gives. I won't spoil it, but there's a spiritual element. There's a huge spiritual element to what his character is. He's a human experience, like incarnated, just like Woody Harrelson's character is as well. Like Woody Harrelson's like a cheater, and like he has a wife, and then Rust Cohle is like kind of like a loose cannon almost, and it's very hard to watch in some ways. But then sometimes he says things, and you're like, it's a sobering feeling. There's not much I have to say without spoiling. I just really appreciate the idea of, you know, this loner who is kind of pulled into purpose, pulled into like, it's like, how is somebody so cynical care so much in the end and fights for what's right? I love to rewatch that show for him.
Sure. Yeah. No. I think. Yeah, Russ is a really interesting character. I think it did like what made True Detective season 1 for me was his dynamic with Woody Harrelson's character. It's like the way Woody Harrelson's just like, I think in the first episode or the second episode, he's like, I just want you to stop saying odd shit. Every other line out of his mouth is like some existential crisis.
He's like, you cannot repeat what you just said to other people, please. Don't
like,
ever say that again.
Dinner, don't say that. Don't talk like that. It's so interesting to have like, you know, because it's rare you see characters sort of front and center in a high caliber show like True Detective that are just talking like that.
And he is respectful to like certain characters when he has to be, and I like the idea that the reason he is saying those things to Woody Harrelson's character is because he's actually comfortable around him.
Yeah,
and it's actually like this beautiful thing, a beautiful like relationship blossoming. And from Woody Harrelson's perspective, he's like, what is this weird guy that I'm paired up with? But then over time, like they become more like each other, and I think I can really relate to that, as I've been on both sides of that. It's like, why am I paired up with this person who's so different from me? But then it's like you learn something from them, they learn something from you, and like maybe things don't always work out. beat the shit out of each other occasionally. but then in the end, you look back on it, and you're like, I don't know who I would be if I didn't experience those things with you. And he represents that in such a way. He's a profoundly like unsettling guy who makes people really think about things.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, have you seen True Detective?
Oh yeah, my favorite show of all time. No, I've been meaning to. I that's like the show I hear like the first season of the show is like the best show of all time or whatever.
I found out that David Milch wrote an episode of season 3 or 4, and now I'm like, I want to watch season 3 now because of that. But it's one episode he wrote. I haven't seen all the other seasons.
Yeah,
I've watched season 2.
I've seen all of them except for the last 5 episodes of the new season. I watched some of it and I was like, I'll get back to that later.
Yeah, I hear it's great. I mean, even with like the Green Lantern show that's coming out, like they keep saying it's like the true detectives, but like up space or whatever. And that I don't even know the show. I was like, yeah, but that sounds cool. Like I like
Stewart and Hal Jordan acting like Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson in this sounds great to me.
Yeah, that
would be amazing. Is that really happening?
Yeah. Hopefully.
I am hearing so many conflicting things about it. Some people are like, "Oh, it's not happening anymore," and I'm like, "But like, has there been an official thing that says that?"
Yeah, like, still going ahead.
So the actor that they cast as Guy Gardner, he hasn't been called back, right?
Yeah. So there's
that was for a different show.
Different versions of the show. Yeah, they had the original show that was meant for originally Max when they had launched Max, and then when James Gunn took over, he's like, okay, that show's no more, but we're doing a different kind of take on the Green Lantern show. New cast, new writer team, all that kind of stuff. So,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it'll be great if done well.
Yeah,
been waiting so long for Lantern content. All right, 2 more left here. I'm pretty sure. The Shield character.
All
right, so
I didn't know this was happening.
So Grant Ward's here because why
do you hate this douchebag, Connor? Tell me.
I talked about Fitz enough, so I was like, because Fitz is my favorite character from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But I want to talk about Ward because, yes, he is a piece of shit. And
what you just said is the same for me too, by the way. I talk about Fitz so much.
No, Fitz is so good. It's such an interesting character. But Grant Ward, it's like, I think from a villain perspective, it's so crazily well done how he's written in the show, because I feel like he's a piece of shit. But in seasons 1 through 3, they do such a good job. Well, I guess season 3 to a lesser degree. In seasons 1 and 2, they paint his actions in such a way that you can kind of make up your own mind why he's doing certain things, and like, is he really the bad guy here, or is he just a victim? I mean, my opinion, he's the bad guy. He's not the victim. He's a manipulative character that is sociopathic and is constantly trying to get everyone on his side, and when he doesn't feel like everyone's on his side, he lashes out and gets angry. So I think he completely meant to kill Fitz and Simmons at the end of season 1, and then when they turned out to be alive, he was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. But I think that's just what makes his character so fascinating. It was like, I can't think of another villain on TV that's so constantly like changes their attitude as soon as they're faced with the consequences of their actions. Like can't think of another villain that constantly just plays the victim card every single chance they get, where it's like, Daisy doesn't hate me. Like she knows I had to do what I had to do, and Daisy's like, if I ever see Grant Ward again, I'll shoot him twice in the head. Like,
doesn't she? She shoots him in the back.
Yeah. It's so funny. And just Gemma as well, trying to kill him with the splinter bombs in season 2. It's like, I think that just makes the character even more. Like,
I wonder if anybody psychoanalyzed him. Like it seems like narcissism. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Like, he cannot get sort of feeling, or it's all about himself. Everything is an attack on him, and it's like when Gemma tries to kill him, and he's like, "I'm disappointed in you, Gemma."
So cool.
He seemed genuinely hurt there, where he for some reason thought that like the team was actually, back on his side for a little bit, and then when he found out they weren't, it set him off even more.
The Dirty Half Dozen is probably one of my most rewatched episodes. Like sometimes I'll just put it on. I'll be like, yeah, sure, let's. It's like, oh, look at us, we're the team finally back together, and it's like they all hate him, like
yeah.
And also, you get the amazing one-shot fight scene in that episode.
Yeah, with I remember everybody being like, put Chloe Bennett in Daredevil season 2 at the time. They were like, put her in next season of Daredevil. Great.
Do you like the notion that people will say there are anti-heroes and then Grant Ward is an anti-villain? And especially in that episode where it's like, I've heard people describe him that way.
I think I heard that at one point as well, but I don't
He's
think
not like that the whole time, though.
I think he's a full-on villain by like season 3.
Yeah,
like,
season
he's
3.
He's torturing Simmons to get information out of Fitz. He's properly the bad guy come season 3. I think in season 2 he is the bad guy. He just hides it better. But in season 3, like he realizes he's not gonna be able to trick the team anymore, so he just lets it all out. He like puts all his cards on the table and is like, I don't need to pretend to be that I'm the good guy anymore. I'm just gonna be the villain now.
I think with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's like important to remember that they do archetypes that we've seen before, but then the show is dynamic enough that they're all evolving. Like I think Fitz is very much feeling like a Xander at the beginning, and then he feels like a Wesley from Angel, if you've ever seen that show.
Sure, yeah.
And then with Grant Ward, in season 2, I would say he's like a wild card because he's like going to help Coulson with certain missions, and then he's like Coulson's promising him like Tahiti to restart his life, but obviously it's revealed later Ward's not interested in that. So he feels like much more like a wild card. And then in season 3, he's so pissed off about what happened to Kara that he's like willing to go full on. By the way, what do you think of like my favorite season 3 episode? Season 3 is my favorite season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh wow, okay.
Controversial.
Cool, yeah.
My favorite episode is in season 5. I'm all over the place. My favorite season 3 episode is episode 10, Mavith.
Okay. Yeah.
And I love what Coulson does to Ward. It's probably like the craziest.
He crushes him with the hand.
I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah. It's like pure just anger. Like there's no flashiness about it. Coulson's just angry. He wants Ward dead.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear the sound of the bone crushing. You see it cave in. The Bear McCreary's music is swelling. Oh, yeah. It's his scream. He's like, "We have to go!" It's the craziest like scene of all time, and I think Ward totally deserved it, and it was a good ending to his character. And the fact that they were able to keep the actor around after that as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can include that in terms of like your experience of Grant Ward, like if you include Hive into your experience, or if you kind of view that as its own thing.
It's kind of hard not to, because it's like, it isn't even like there's an episode between when he comes back as Hive. Like it's the end credits of the same episode he dies. He's already back as Hive. So it's it's hard to detach that from Grant Ward because it's just continuous. But I think just one last thing to say is I think they do a good job though at differentiating the characters. Like Hive is nothing like Ward in any shape or form. So
I also think like even if they are separate characters, in Coulson's mind when he's killing Ward, like his body, like he's killing Ward there, like he's taking out Ward there. Like they're in his mind, yes, he knows they're different, but like that's Ward that he's finally getting vengeance on. But no, I do just quickly want to talk about like the season 1 moment, like that twist is probably still my favorite twist in any TV show I've ever seen. Just the our main character that we've learned to love and cherish is now part of Hydra, and that like realization, like, oh my god, like I can't believe we've got to this moment. And again, like we've learned to love Ward, the characters have learned to love Ward, they have such like a connection to him,
and they don't find out for like 2 or 3 episodes, and we as the audience get to know. Yeah,
that life moment, that's like the Ward is Hydra on the thing, and I think it's Daisy that finds it, right? It's just like, oh my,
Gemma goes in and finds, Daisy finds out first, but the whole team finds out when Gemma finds out in the room when she goes in and she sees it like carved on the painting. It's like Ward is Hydra.
Good.
What about Framework Ward?
I love that too. Yeah.
I love I love it. I think it's like it's such an interesting way to go about Daisy, where it's sort of where she says she sort of understands Ward now because of meeting the Framework version of him. But I mean, I am a little bit conflicted on that because I feel like she doesn't have to understand Ward. Like Ward is, he's a narcissist. He's a psychopath. He's the bad guy. Like I don't think you need to put her through that where she now needs to understand why Ward did what he did. He did what he did because he's a piece of shit. But I still think like Framework Ward is really good. Like I think having him back for that was really, really enjoyable.
And I also love
the show's so traumatic for Daisy.
Yeah, really traumatic for Daisy.
What I also love about that, and like I know maybe there was like conflicts with the actors and stuff like that. Like I heard there's maybe some drama with them, but like I also think it would have been so easy for the show to be like, oh, we're bringing back Ward through this alternate framework version. Like
he's gonna get an
Ward, but good. You know, like the Arrowverse would do that a lot.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, he's back on the team now, but this one's good, so he can just be part of the cast again. It would have been so easy for them to do that, and I'm glad we're like, he's good now, but he stays there. Like he stays in his sector. So I think that
it's funny that there is a frame of Ward in season 5.
Yeah,
he's in all 5 of the first seasons.
Yeah. Great.
So when we're all just sitting there laughing after the pranks on the bus.
I will say I view Ward more as like an experimental wild card that really paid off.
Yeah, sure.
I think that in terms of the framework Ward, it was just he's in like 3 episodes of season 4, right? Because of that, like 3 or 4.
Right. He's in the first one, the second one, and I think only and then I think he skips one and then he's back for one.
Yeah, for like a few scenes in that final one, and then like he like gets the gun, he's like, I gotta defend the place, and then they're like, no, they're here to help us. And I always loved the idea that they thought that he was Hydra, but then he's actually the traitor again in the framework. Guy. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's such.
I like the idea. I like the spirit of because Victoria Hand got to him before Garrett did.
Yeah, Garrett did. Yeah.
I appreciate that, but I do agree with you that like a lot of his decisions are his own, and at any point during season 1 or season 2 or season 3, or maybe not after Kara died. Actually, no. What? There's so many points, like when he's torturing Bobby with like the pins in her nails. Like
they keep putting back to it in that episode too.
He could have became good at any point in season 2 and reversed a lot of what he did, but I think there are many moments in season 2 that it's clear that he was on a path that he wasn't really going to turn away from. And like think about Rosalind. Remember Rosalind?
Yeah. Shooting her from like 4 blocks away or something.
He was asking for getting his chest crushed, I think, at a certain point. But I like the idea that, like, yeah, if somebody else had gotten to him in his youth before Garrett did, maybe perhaps he could have been redeemed. But I think it's clear from what the show tells us in season 2 that, that probably wasn't going to happen to that version of Grant Ward. That version of Grant Ward, it was too late.
I mean, in season 3, they're already playing around with the idea that a lot of the stories he was telling about his brothers were false, and that, you know, Thomas was running away from Grant, that Grant was actually the bully.
Who was thrown in the well to you guys? Who threw who into the well?
I think Grant threw him in the well. I think Grant's the bad guy from the beginning. Like, I think the framework Grant maybe was stopped before it got to the point where it got in the real world. But I think in the real world, I think he was just always a bad guy. And then Garrett just found him when he was a really angry kid and just turned that into a weapon. Because
his older brother does say something about, like, oh, mom and dad always protected with their younger brother, Christian, I think.
Yeah.
I forgot their names, but
Christian's
I remember, like...
Senator, and then Thomas is the younger one, I think.
Yeah, so, like, mom and dad always protected Thomas and, like, favoritism. So, like, there was some sort of disagreement about, like... Yeah. And that's just fascinating. I love that we can debate that. Who knows?
That's such a good thing about the show, is that they leave so many little pieces, but it's up to you to decide what you think happened.
I personally think... Because I have a bit of a mental health background. I used to work with like at-risk youth, and like I can see the idea that probably he was a victim of something, but I also can see the idea that he could have been a perpetrator as well. I think it's probably tit for tat, but it's more likely that everyone involved in the Ward family was
they were
like doing some bad things.
Like Thomas was maybe the only good one.
Yeah, Thomas is dope.
Yeah, for sure.
Great show.
Great villain. Great character.
Fantastic.
He should have been Nathan Drake.
That would have been actually great.
I would have been okay with that.
He does look kind of like Nathan in that picture.
I mean, there's people that want him as like the DCU Batman. I'm like, I could see it.
Yeah.
I could see him being like a Bruce Wayne and then put on the cowl or whatever.
Sure.
That'd be cool.
Hal Jordan, even like, there's so many. He's a good everyman. He's a very good everyman.
Sure. And the last one I have here, my pick for the final one. And I was just kind of like going through like one of my favorite shows. Like, what's a character I want to include? Last minute, I put Roy Kent
from
Ted Lasso, and I could literally, I could fit so many Ted Lasso characters on this list. Like, obviously Ted Lasso like could easily be like one of my favorite characters, and like so many. I just love that almost that entire cast of characters. But like Roy Kent, man, he's such a fun character to watch. Like, there is something so entertaining about like every line of dialogue that he gives off. Like, so many like quotable moments, and like his journey through the seasons is so just fun. Like, I love his like this like roughed up like senior player just trying to like keep up with the pack, to his season 2 journey about finding where he is and where he belongs, and then becoming a coach himself. And then the final season, I do think they kind of somewhat lose steam just a little bit at the end, just kind of where he ended up. But like ultimately, like his like frenemy journey with Jamie is so much fun, and they're like back. Jamie's another character you could say, like, if you said that was your favorite, I'd be like, I get it, because Jamie's journey is also incredible. Seeing where they kind of both go together, and like they're like frenemies to just by the end, like best friend thing is so much fun. There's just so many like quotes from the show that I love. Like, I love the season 3 line where it's like you all know I don't have a hairy ass, and none of you said anything. Like, that's so good. And all of his lines, like, I love how he's just like so unapologetically him. Like, he lets no one else tell him what he can and can't say and act and be. And like the like Roy Kent you see is like the Roy Kent you get. And I feel like that's so refreshing in a show like this. Just such a uncentered character. And I think especially like parallel to someone like Ted, where like he's not necessarily putting on a front, and like Ted also like is his like authentic self, but he also has so many doors he's locked behind. Like, he has this front that he puts on, and there's like lock after lock after lock where Roy is just, he's Roy. He says what he says, and he says what he means. And I don't know, getting to, not to say Roy also doesn't have his like layers to him. Like, obviously he's able to undo those layers and let people in, which is always super fun to watch. And yeah, I was like, yeah, I think Roy Kent is one of my favorite fictional characters, or like TV characters. Like, and obviously like we've talked about like, hey, would we watch a Roy Kent show? I was like, maybe. I think he could do it if he wanted to. I don't know if he should, but he could definitely be that guy if you want him to. Connor, do you have any thoughts on him?
I know, yeah, Roy's great. He's definitely one of the best episodes of Ted Lasso, or best characters of Ted Lasso. No, I mean, yeah, it's like he's. I know it's not exactly what a foil is, but it feels like he's the foil to Ted Lasso. You know, Ted comes in with this really wholesome sort of outlook and everything. I guess Jamie's kind of more of a foil to Ted's comedy, but the way Roy is much more kind of stern, you know, every second word is an F word or something like that. Like, it feels very different to Ted as a character and stuff like that. And I think the show handles that really well. I think the way that the show goes on with him, you know, going through his, not to spoil anything, but going through his changes in his career and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And how he starts off at one point in his life, and by season 2, you know, he's in a completely different point of his life, because he has to be, due to the nature of the career he's in. And it's really interesting, and it's borderline emotional, like how they do it, like how they handle it. I'm of the mind still that, you know, Ted Lasso is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's on my top 50 of all time list. But I'm of the mind that I don't think there should be a spin-off of Ted Lasso, because I think what is so good about Ted Lasso is the ensemble cast. I'm not even just Ted Lasso. I think just I don't think, like, I don't even want a new Ted Lasso show with Ted Lasso as the front and center of like a different, you know, of like an American team or something like that. I think what makes the main show so strong is that ensemble. And I think you take any one of those characters out, the show's not nearly as good. I think you take Roy out, it's not nearly as good. But if you have a Roy show and you take any of the main characters from Ted Lasso out, a Roy show isn't going to be as good unless you find a really good character to fill that gap. But yeah, no, he's great. Really good character, really good pick.
And he's also just like so. He's I think almost all my characters I've listed today are like wholesome characters, and he's like wholesome in another way. Like, he's wholesome in such a different way. Like, the way his like relationship with his niece is one of my some of my favorite episodes from the show. Like, I love the Christmas one where he's like, all right, we're gonna every door that we knock in, if there's not a dentist there, I'll give you like $100, and just like how passionate he is about the people in his life is just like, even if he doesn't want to do it at first, like the way he's just slowly, he's like, yeah, these are my people, and like I would do anything for them, and it's so good. And again, there's so many quotes from the show, and I could just be like, yeah, this quote and this quote. It's just one of those characters that I enjoy watching every week.
Yeah,
it's like each episode, like that quote or like that moment from Roy was just my favorite part of like each episode of the show, and I love it.
When he smells her breath before they go looking for the dentist, he's like, it's not going to be that bad. I'm in men's locker rooms all day. I've smelled so many bad stuff. It's not good that when he smells it. He just goes, I think you might be dying. It's like it's one of the best moments of the show.
Yeah. It's such a like a good like straight man comedy. Like like nothing he says like he's supposed to be funny, but just the way he gives his line, like every time he's like, "Fuck!" Like it's so funny the way he does it. I love Roy. Yeah,
I have not seen Ted Lasso, and I think you guys are definitely convincing me.
It's really good.
Ooh, it's one I put it off for so long because it was one of those like it can't be that good. Like it's not, but like I think it's like and we've talked about Ted Lasso on the show in the past, but like I think it's just the show that the world needs right now. Like,
is it an hour long format or is it like a half an hour long show?
It starts off shorter.
Yeah, it's like season 1 is like 30 minutes
that's
long.
Cool. No, that's what every show needs to be. Every show should have episodes as long as they need to be and not be like, we only have 30 minutes today.
44 minutes.
Yeah.
It's such a weird like transition though from like the season 1, because I was doing it on a binge. It's like 30-minute episodes, and then you jump into season 2, it's like an hour long. It's like, oh my gosh.
Cool.
Like season 2 is like every other episode's an hour long. Season 3, it's like they're mostly an hour long.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're a big fan of like character stuff and shows, Ted Lasso's a great choice. Because
I don't know what like to compare it to. Like in terms of like comedy drama shows, like like in my list of top shows of all time, like I have things like Search Party and Glow and Atlanta and like Master of the Nun. I like. Would you guys compare it to something like that, or is it more of like a sports heavy thing? I like sports heavy stuff as well. Like
you know what?
It reminds me of the lighthearted stuff of Barry. I think like the
cool.
Stuff of Barry, it reminds me of that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's so like unique to anything because like at first like, oh yeah, like it's a sitcom, but like it's actually not a sitcom. Like it is
Silicon Valley, maybe.
Yeah, it's because it's so unbelievably funny, but like at its core, it is more of a drama than it is a comedy. And season 1's very sports heavy, and then after that, they do really focus more on the characters, which I actually personally like. Maybe it's because I just am not a sports guy, so maybe that's why it appealed to me a bit more. But like, it's like if you're not a sports guy, or like if you're not like a sports person, like don't let this like turn you off.
Like all the Airbuds.
Yeah.
They like skip over the games a lot. Like they'll have like them walk out onto the pitch, and then they'll cut, and it'll be like the score on the screen.
Yeah,
right.
But like when the sports stuff is going on, like, I think it's done well. Like
it is, like, for sure.
Like again, I'm not a huge sports guy, but like I get into it. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
The one word I always hear about the show is wholesome. I always hear that.
It's pretty wholesome.
Easily the most wholesome show I've ever.
I probably need that.
Yeah, it's just a breath of fresh air. Like I said, like it's like a show that I think the world needs right now. And it like, like I love stuff like even like Superman and Lois. Like
I was just about to say that's a show. I agree with that.
It gives me kind of the feel like it has like maybe some of the comedy elements of like a show like Barry, and then like the wholesomeness of something like Superman and Lois. So it's great.
It's like there's got to be stakes, but then there also has to be some heart.
Yeah. There needs to be a reason to care for the characters. Like you want to see them have nice moments.
For sure. Yeah. And it's also just a nice like 3-season show. Like it's
over.
They said it was going to be 3 seasons when it started, and they kept to it.
That makes me way more into checking it out, honestly.
Because it's like 13 episodes each, like 13 episodes, relatively short, 3 seasons. Like it's a super quick binge. But I think that puts us at the end of our episode. I'm really sorry I kept you here for 3 hours. I did not mean to do that, but we had an absolute blast talking to you.
For sure.
Thank you so much for being here. This was an absolute blast.
Thanks for having me. I mean, the 4 characters that I pick, I need you guys to know that like for those 4 shows that I picked, like it could have gone to anybody. Like it could have been Wesley from Daredevil. It could have been Calamity Jane. It could have been Fitz. You know, it could have been a Succession character. I really love TV. And right now, my most anticipated TV show is probably still the Wonder Woman prequel show, Paradise Lost.
Oh, wow.
I'm most curious about that. I love the Wonder Woman mythos. I want there to be an animated show one day. It sucks that there isn't. And right now, I'm really enjoying Queen of Swords. And it's like a show I'm trying to get more people to introduce to, even though, like, as far as like Zorro adaptions go, I've seen better sword fights in the 40s. But like in terms of like the shows that were like coming off the Buffy Smallville hype, yeah, I love shows like that. I love a good vigilante.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, like, is there anything that you would like to like promote? Anything that you would like to shout out? Like where can people find you?
I mean, I'm just on Twitter. I'm Bedeviled Dinosaur. I'm Dino Coley. I'm always tweeting weird stuff. I am wanting to put out more like content like on Twitch, but I'm still trying to work out my setups for all of that. So, you know, I'd love to be back. I'd love to talk to you guys again. It was a pleasure chatting.
This was an absolute blast. We would love to have you back. Connor, is there anything that you're working on that you want to shout out?
Superman costume discussion tomorrow, probably.
Ooh, drop on this channel.
There's a Doom Patrol video I want to do. Talking about.
Oh, that's another show. I could have picked Robot Man as well. That was one I was thinking of doing.
That's great.
Great characters in that show. That's another like very strong like character-driven show.
Yeah,
that's great.
Absolutely.
Clearly, we can talk in circles. Clearly, we can talk for hours about all this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's like this is a video topic. I could be like part 57 of characters. Like there's so many great characters.
We liked, like characters or something.
What? It's crazy. And then as far as me, normal content, as always, Monday we'll be dropping our newest episode of Darren After the Credits. We're talking about penultimate episode of X-Men 97 and the start of the new Doctor Who show. Which
you said you were talking about Justified this week as well.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, you said you were gonna be. Yeah, you were gonna be talking about that. Well, you said on your channel, nice. You're gonna have to because they're gonna come.
I think you said that actually. I didn't do that.
Well, you agreed. So
the Marshal's coming.
The Marshal's coming.
With a gun.
With a gun.
6 seasons of that show or whatever it is.
Yes, you got it. In the movie.
But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you everyone for being here, and I will catch y'all later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
See ya.